Hi, welcome back, guys. This is your friend, the DN WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the movie of What If Deku Was Working Undercover at UA. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Are you ready for your next mission, Trigger Rabbit? I must warn you, this mission will go on for 6 whole months in order for you to complete it. Any objections? The man said, as he swirled around in his chair, giving his most trusted dealer the most important mission he spent years of working and preparing for. No objections, Captain. I'll happily take on this mission. The green-haired kid said seriously, his blank face and a strong stance that showed how determined he was for this mission. Very well. The man stood up from his chair to hand the green-net kid a thick file that contained all the information for the mission he's going to be doing. Your next deal will take place at the Top Hero Academy UA. You're going to be enrolled as a support course student where you'll be creating and repairing support items for the students who bought our product. So it will be your job to make sure they get their product with the support items you'll be handling. Understand? The man's one only good eye stared down at the kid who was so much smaller than him in height. Yes, Captain. But it appears I'm going to be enrolled with my dead name. Let me guess, Bakugo. The kid's last green eye that held a very jaded shade looked up at his handler with a concealed glare. Yes, you're correct. Bakugo will be attending UA by the time the school year starts. And he would prove to be an issue if you two ever come into contact with one another only for him to see that you're holding a completely different name. So we have no choice but to use your old identity. But trust me, this won't compromise your real identity nor mission. You've been doing this long enough that nobody will ever bat an eye at whatever name you have. Well, unless they have two. So do what you do best, Rabbit. The man's one hazelnut. I continued looking down at the child, who was now flipping through the files of the customers who were now waiting for their product. Understood, Captain. When do I start? The kid closed up the file to look up at his handler. You start next month on the 1st, but before then you will have to attend the entrance exam if you wish to be enrolled. That's next week, so be prepared. We already put in the measurements for your school uniform, so once you pass your entrance exam, you'll receive it in the mail. So now you just have to do a little bit of school shopping till then. Any more questions? The handler asked, stopping in his tracks that left his back facing the small kid. No questions, Captain. I understand my objective, and will be ready by the time the entrance exam starts. Thank you for your time, sir. Izuku bowed in respect for the man who gave him a second chance in life. Of course, you're one of my best dealers, if not my favorite. Now remember, Rabbit. The man was now standing in front of the kid and knelt down to face him with his syringe fingers pressing against the kid's freckled cheek. This mission is operating inside the most secure hero academy of the entire country. And if anything goes astray at any point, you know what to do, right? Can't you tell me, little rabbit? His haunting glare was enough to send anyone shaking in their skin. Sir Ring showed every emotion with his eyes since half of his face was covered by a medical mask. I'll run and disappear into the burrow. Then I'll have Carnivore devour me, as if I'm his last meal on death row. Rabbit said out loud with a voice that was dull, but filled with pride. I'll no longer exist the moment my limbs are torn apart piece by piece, then swallowed into the mouth of a fascinating quirk. My body, my soul, and existence will never be found, and I'll see Mama again. Rabbit had a single tear stream down his face from the one eye that was still a functioning organ to produce tears. Perfect. I trained you well, Rabbit. You're dismissed. Rabbit felt the sharp tips of his syringe-like fingers that ruffled his green and black curls. Thank you, Captain Sir Ring. Rabbit finally bowed with full respect before he quietly walked out of the meeting room with the file in hand. Once down the window-filled hallway, he pressed the elevator button and began to descend down into the lobby to leave the building. Rabbit did have a whole month to kill, so he may as well do his school shopping now while still in the city. Rabbit walked out of the building his mother used to work at. the same building where she was killed when a villain doped themselves up with Trigger and went on a rampage. And that very same day, Izuku Midoriya died from jumping off the same building the #1 hero of Japan left him on after crushing his dreams of becoming a hero. Ever since that day, the so-called ghost of Izuku Midoriya, what Rabbit calls it, wandered the streets in search of rest and was stuck in limbo. The ghost was digging in dumpsters for food and buying thrifted clothes from what little money he had left. Time on the streets resulted in him meeting some homeless people who took in the ghost and let him stay with them in their abandoned warehouse. The ghost of Izuku did his best to keep them safe and well as his payment for their kindness, even if that meant he had to make money off of shady activities. But that's how he met his handler, his boss, his brother, the infamous drug lord named Captain Sir Ring. And that man alone resurrected the ghost of the suicidal boy to give him his new name, his new purpose, and his new life. Trigger Rabbit, his new name that he now wore with pride. Rabbit walked through the entrance of the very crowded mall and started to place his mind to think like a regular teenage boy. Let's see. Well, we can start with a brand new pair of shoes for school, and another pair of combat boots since Rabbit's current pair is on the verge of popping open. When walking into one of the many shoe stores and gazing upon the collection made for quirkless people, his eyes stared at the brand new pair of red chunky shoes. Ever since Izuku Midoriya committed suicide from that cursed building, his pair of signature red sneakers were left on the ledge he jumped from. Then when the day came when Captain Sir Ring asked the ghost to work for him, the ghost was shocked to see the man had the tied shoelaces of the red and completely vandalized shoes that dangled from his syringe fingers. Rabbit remembered how Sir Ring tossed the ghost his shoes back as if they meant nothing, but Rabbit cherished and wore them until the soles popped open. "Hello, kiddo? See anything you like? I see that you're interested in the red color." A male with aqua blue eyes and white-colored horns that were floating above his never-ending waving blue curls of hair. The man continued to smile down at Rabbit, no malice being detected in any way, just pure kindness radiating from his aura. "Yeah, my favorite color is red, and I used to have a pair of my own, but I wore them so much that the soles popped out." Rabbit sighed, putting on his handy-dandy extroverted mask that he's perfectly mastered. "Oh, I see. Well, kiddo, if you wish to keep wearing them, you could actually keep them together with some colorful tape or a bandana. Doing that would also add some personality to them. Oh, speaking of personality, you should check out Honor Crafts down the way. They carry tons of charms that's great for decorating shoes. They also carry hero charms. So maybe you'll find your favorite hero and attach them to your shoes. Also, love those boots, kid." The worker smiled with true kindness that Izuku Midoriya would have loved if he was still alive. Heck, he would have fanboyed with this worker about his favorite hero for hours. But Izuku Midoriya is dead. He died by suicide, and now his ghost lives inside his shell of a body. That's actually a really good idea. Thank you for your time, sir. Rabbit beamed happily. "No problem, kiddo. Have a nice day. Oh, if you're looking for a new pair of those cool-looking boots, check out Solo's just across. They carry some awesome boots." The worker happily explained. "Thank you, sir. Here's a 3,000 tip for your time." Rabbit pulled the paper money from his wallet, looking up at the worker with a kind smile. "Whoa, kiddo, that's so nice. Are you sure?" The worker hesitated. "Of course. Please, I insist." Rabbit insisted, holding out the money happily. "Wow, thank you so much, he led on while taking hold of the money. "Just call me Rabbit, it's my nickname." He smiled back after placing his wallet back in his pocket. "Nice, thanks, Rabbit." The worker turned around to see his other co-worker helping out a family. "I better get back to work, but thank you so much, Rabbit. I'll see you around." The worker held out his hand for a handshake that Rabbit happily returned. "No problem, it's my pleasure. I'll see you around." And with that, Rabbit waved at the worker and exited the shoe store to begin to shop at Solo's for a brand new pair of black combat boots. Once picking up a brand new pair that has really cool chains and spikes on them and fit his budget, He then made his way to the Honor Crafts shop to take a look at what they have that could add some flair to his old pair of red sneakers. Hello, welcome. How may I help you? Or do you want to have a look around first? An elderly woman who smiled so kindly down at Rabbit. I'll take a look around, thank you, miss. Rabbit smiled back. No problem, dearie. Please holler if there's anything you like. The lady went back to scanning the customer's items at the register. Rabbit was now window shopping at all the products that were displayed, taking a look at the wide variety of products that were on sale. Okay, Rabbit, think as a teenage boy. Would a regular teenager get these kinds of things for their shoes? I mean, if the worker at the shoe store thought it would fit him, then he may as well give it a shot, right? Anything you see that catches your eye, dear? The elderly woman approached Rabbit this time, having her full attention on the boy. Not yet, but could you help me? You see, I own a pair of red sneakers that I wore all the time to where the soles literally popped open, but I still really like them and still want to wear them. Then a really kind man at one of the shoe stores here told me I could tape them or bind them together with a bandana. Not only would they stay together, but it could add some personality, as he put it. Rabbit did some air quotes with his fingers as he said it, hoping the woman would have the advice he needed. Oh, I see. Yes, that would be functional. You said they're red, correct? Rabbit nodded to her question, having the woman hum and signaled Rabbit to follow her down to a certain section of the shop. We do carry both colorful tape and bandanas that you can pick out that would go nicely with your shoes. Come this way. The lady led Rabbit over to the color tape section. These tapes are very durable for anything you need. They stick really well and won't tear apart so easily. So these would be perfect if you'd like to tape your shoes back together. Rabbit picked up a purple-colored tape to feel how heavy it weighs. Oh, we also have tapes with patterns on them, so you can decide what would look perfect for your shoes. She then led Rabbit over to the bandana section. The collection was all color coordinated with different designs and sizes. All our bandanas are the same. We have all different colors, patterns, and sizes. And if you can't decide, you can always choose both. You could tape your soles together for extra security, then tie them over with a cloth to add personality, as you put it. She smiled brightly whilst grabbing a bandana that had the hero, Edshot pattern all over it. We also have hero designs, so whoever your favorite hero is, we have them. Is there a specific hero that you like if you're planning on getting the bandana? Her smile was so kind and sweet that it caused Rabbit to feel warm inside. Now for Rabbit, he doesn't care for heroes anymore, especially since the first and last hero he loved had left him to jump off the building and made him go splat like a bug on the pavement. So realistically, Rabbit would have just taken any color tape or bandana, then gone on with his day as normal. But in this mission, he isn't Rabbit. He's Izuku Midoriya. So with a deep breath, Rabbit dusted off the mask of the dead boy that's rotting away in limbo and pulled it back on his freckled face. Then with a huge smile and eyes that could compete with the stars, he shouted, "All Might." Izuku character sheet. Here is some art I made for the visual of this story. Yes, I know, I drew Izuku with long hair, but honestly in this story, it doesn't matter what hairstyle he has, it can stay as canon for you, or you can imagine him with the long hair I drew. Again, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted an excuse to draw him with gorgeous curls. Also, if you wish to see the censored doodle, head to my Patreon to see. Check out my online shop if you wish to purchase more My Hero Academia merch. Check out my online store at www.CodenameHeist.com, where I sell My Hero Academia charms, stickers, and traditional art. I received a letter from UA Academy. Congratulations, Izuku Midoriya. You passed the entrance exam with flying colors. Captain Sir Rings slid the projector that showed Principal Nezu reading out his test results, revealing he got the highest score out of the written exam that has ever been recorded, causing him to set a new record for the highest score ever received at UA. Since you're enrolling into the support course, there was no need for you to attend the physical entrance exam, since that's for the hero course students. And since you passed, I just submitted a file record of the experience you have in working with mechanics. Sir Ring stood up while sliding another thick file across the table for Rabbit to read. Luckily for us, since your mother worked and specialized in designing support items for heroes, her track record was enough for us to get you enrolled. Sir Ring then pointed up at the board that showed a man with zebra ears, tail, and patterns along his face, and a woman who had hair that transitioned into a scorpion tail. These two junkies are posing as your foster parents. They will make their appearance when the time comes to withdraw you from the school once your mission is complete. Sir Ring then changed the picture on the board that showed a symbol that Rabbit was all too familiar with. As for knowing how to recognize what support item gets the product, if the blueprint you receive has this symbol on it, that's our customer. The symbol was a simple rabbit design that had plus signs as eyes with 3 whiskers on each side. It's also the same design that's embroidered on the eye patch he's currently wearing. Now one last thing, if you come across Bakugo Katsuki, and he demands to know what happened to you. Captain Sir Ring leaned close and once again pressed his sharp needle fingers against Rabbit's throat. "What do you say?" he asked, cocking his head to the side. "I tell him that I took that swan dive after my mother was killed, but I survived and ended up in the foster care system, where I stayed in the countryside for a while." Rabbit replied, having the whole script memorized in his head. "Good. And what do you say when I show up for you?" He leaned in closer with that terrifying gaze from his one good-seeing golden eye, along with his right blind eye that was now gray in color. Letting Rabbit have a closer look at the acid scar that caused his eye to become blind, his skin to scar, and his teeth to rot. "I tell them that you're one of my foster brothers who helped look after me, and if they ask about your appearance or your quirk, I just tell them that it's your story to tell, not mine. And if they ask you personally, you tell them that you're a recovering drug addict, and that your quirk is called syringe." Rabbit then looked up to face his boss, the man he owns everything to. "You tell them that you care for me like an older brother, and that you wish for nothing more than my happiness and safety." They stayed silent for a few moments, gazing into each other's eyes. Every emotion was there and seen. Anger, sadness, happiness, hatred, euphoria, and fear all flashed between them, showing how complicated their relationship actually was. "Excellent. You're ready, Rabbit. You start in 3 days, so be there at 8 a.m. Also, are you sure about those shoes?" Sir Ring pointed down at the torn up, vandalized, and slightly burnt red chunky sneakers that had both tape and an All Might pattern bandana tying them together. Even the shoelaces were dazzled with All Might charms, star charms, and a rabbit pendant. The final touch that topped the whole cake of the shoes that once belonged to a dead, quirkless kid was the word Deku spelled out in English on the charms that were attached to the front of his shoelaces. The smeared marker stains of "quirkless freak," "waste of air," and so many more slurs that were written next to the small doodles of spider lilies that were drawn on there from his middle school peers is what tied the whole thing together. Yes, if I'm playing as Izuku Midoriya, who's coming from a foster care background, I have to look the part. Also, thank you again for retrieving my old backpack, sir. Rabbit showed off his now decorated, but also very torn up almost in the same fashion as his shoes, if not more, yellow backpack that was washed from all the stains from being in a dumpster then to a thrift store. It wasn't hard finding it again, so if there's anything else you need for the Izuku role, let me know. Rabbit nodded as he bowed, ready to leave the building and back to the low-rent apartment he's been staying at for the mission. "One last thing, Rabbit. I know I shouldn't have to say it because it's obvious, but you really need to stay sober for this mission." Rabbit slightly cringed at the glare Sir Ring was sending him from over his shoulder. "I know it's going to be hard for you since the longest you've been sober was 2 months, and by that point you were already scratching your veins out from the withdrawals." Rabbit hated the flashbacks of him thrashing in the bathtub, struggling to breathe from his panic attack that was triggered from the paranoia, and scratching at his inner forearm over and over again just to stay grounded and not get taken away by the hallucinations. So since the withdrawals are guaranteed to hit harder than before, I already set aside some fake documents in case you have to take a drug test. Sir Ring handed Rabbit the copies of the fake documents that were signed by a real doctor. A customer of mine owed me, so I had him create these for you. So you can still get high when wanted. But you need to be careful. Okay? Rabbit nodded, looking up at his handler as if he was a god. To him, he definitely was. I will, thank you, he shouted, earning a not-so-pleasant look from Sir Ring. Oh, and thank you for your time, Captain. Rabbit bowed, blushing in embarrassment just from being excited about staying high on this mission. He really can't afford to crash during this mission. Not again. Never again. Pleasure to do business with you, kid. You're dismissed. Go out to eat and get some sleep. Captain Sir Ring waved with his long syringe fingers, looking as if he had his nails done. I will, Sir Ring. I'll talk to you soon. Rabbit waved, then left the conference room, walking down the windowed halls once again towards the elevator. Rabbit was exhausted after today. He was on a drug meet that went horribly wrong that left him with another deep scar, and a cut over his sclera on his left blind eye, now resulting in him wearing an eye patch once again with his signature Rabbit logo embroidered into it. Once Rabbit was settled into the elevator, pressing the button to the lobby, he pulled up his phone to text his roommate. 3 Himiko 3. Emerald Bunny. Just finished my meeting. Want to meet up at Tokyo Treasures for dinner. By the time Rabbit got off the elevator and started strolling through the lobby, he got a text back from Himiko. 3 Himiko 3. Lovely vampire. Of course, Bunny. I'll meet you there. I love you. 3. I swear, any text from her left Rabbit smiling nonstop, with a blush that lit up his freckles like a starry night. 3 Himiko 3. Emerald Bunny. I love you too, Himi 3. With that, Rabbit opened up the Uber app to request an Uber ride over to the restaurant. Once the Uber driver arrived and confirmed Rabbit was his pickup, the boy got in the car, having the driver begin their journey off into the night, towards the restaurant. You by yourself tonight, kid? Or are you meeting someone? The driver, who smelled like cigarettes, had ram-like eyes and horns that curled up in a very natural manner. The man peered at Rabbit through the rear-view mirror, while also giving him a very kind, yet tired smile. Rabbit easily put the pieces together that the man had been working all day long from the look of his eyes, and he just seemed to be looking for a conversation to pass the time. Rabbit let out his own tired sigh, giving the man a nod. I am meeting my roommate tonight for dinner at the restaurant, but in other circumstances I am alone. Rabbit let out a mentally tired chuckle. He knew he shouldn't vent to his driver. It's not his place to dump all his baggage on this kind man. You know what they say, don't bleed on someone who didn't cut you. I understand when you say you're alone, kid. Believe me, I've been alone all my life, even when I had siblings. The man sighed, obviously showing that he too didn't want to dump all his baggage on some kid he's just giving a ride to. But Rabbit was curious. How so, sir? Rabbit tilted his head, already getting invested in his driver's lore. Ah, well. My dad was nothing but a drunk bastard who'd beat me and my siblings until we were black and blue. He sighed, the memory showing great pain. Our mother had committed suicide from the fear he held over her head, making her go mad and take her own life. A thump made its way to Rabbit's heart. That must have been from the ghost of Izuku. Even when I had siblings, we all basically turned on each other for survival. There was always something we'd do to each other to make sure our father didn't beat us. Rabbit could see the pain and regret in his eyes. Father's booze went missing. Blame it on my brother. Cigarettes were stolen. Blame it on my sister. Money was stolen. I was blamed. They stopped at a red light. Do you still talk to your siblings? Rabbit asked softly, earning a small nod from the man. I'm still very close with my twin sister, because she understands that we only lived that way for survival. My other 3 siblings, we all split apart. The light turned green, letting the car return into motion. On that moment the man let out a sad chuckle. I remember my oldest brother vowed to never speak, nor see any of us again. He was the first to move out the moment he turned 18. The way Rabbit's heart ached for this man was seriously concerning him. Rabbit shouldn't care about anyone but himself, but this man. He deserves every bit of kindness and respect he can receive. I'm so sorry you had to endure that growing up, sir. I know I wouldn't survive at all if it were me. I mean, look at my face. Rabbit chuckled while pointing at his eye patch. I too get beaten black and blue for just existing. Okay, even if his loss of eyesight was suicide. It wasn't technically a lie since Rabbit does still get beaten almost to death on a daily basis. And when he does get punched over and over, he makes sure they aim for his bad eye. It's not like it's functional anymore. Ah, I noticed your shoes. I'm so sorry for how society treated you, kid. You know, growing up I had a quirkless friend from grade school. This caught Rabbit off guard. He was my best friend, a brother that was always there for me when I wanted to get away from my blood-related family. His eyes then turned dull, until he was killed during his freshman year from a quirkist gang. If Rabbit had actual bunny ears, they would have stood straight up like a bowstring. It was brutal. They jumped him one late night, beat him half to death, then choked and hanged him with his own shoelaces. The man peered at Rabbit through the rear view mirror. Are you okay though, kid? I wish nothing bad upon you, said the man, his voice full of sincerity. Rabbit let out a little chuckle. Don't worry, sir. Besides my face, I'm doing okay. He lightly chuckled. Although I am going back to a public school on Monday, during my last public school, I was bullied relentlessly. But this time I know some self-defense moves that'll help me if needed. Ah, that's good for you, kid. While we're here, I wish you well, kid. The driver smiled, pulling the car onto the curb beside the busy sidewalk. You too, sir, and here, a 3,700 as a tip. Rabbit said, beginning to pull out the cash from his wallet. No, please keep it. Just talking to you after a rough shift is enough. Thank you, though. The man smiled, that reflected how tired he was. Rabbit couldn't help but smile at his driver. Of course, and thank you for talking with me. I enjoyed our conversation. Rabbit opened the car door. And I hope one day you'll mend the relationship between you and your 3 siblings. The man could see the sincerity in the kid's eye. Thank you, kid. I'll see you around. The man smiled, getting ready to pull out of the curb. Rabbit closed the car door and bowed to the man. You too, sir. Rabbit stood up straight from his bow, just in time to see the man wave and drive off into the busy street. Rabbit felt so much lighter, knowing the man could still make things right in his life. Rabbit knows firsthand he'll never have that. With an exhale and a smile, Rabbit turned around and walked into the restaurant. Hello, young man, table for one, reservation, or anyone you're meeting? A kind waiter smiled through his saber-toothed mouth. Oh, hello. I'm having dinner with my roommate. Blonde hair, gold eyes, and a really cute feline smile. Rabbit tried to replicate her smile, but he obviously couldn't get it spot on since he doesn't have her feline sharp fangs. Oh yes, she checked in just 8 minutes ago. Right this way, young man. The kind waiter smiled once more, leading Rabbit over to his roommate, who sat in a booth with a fruit punch drink with a swirling straw and some fruit appetizers. Bunny, you made it, she squealed very excitedly, whilst getting up from her leather seat to pull Rabbit into a tight, but yearning full embrace. It's so good to see you, it's been weeks. She sat Rabbit down on the seat across from her, smiling nonstop at her wonderful friend roommate. Yeah, I'm sorry for being away for so long. My last job was in the next city over. Rabbit laughed while ordering a regular iced tea, having the waiter write it down, and then leave to retrieve the drink. But I'm going to be home now. My next job will take me away from 6 a.m. until 3 p.m. for the next couple of months. Rabbit smiled wide from seeing the way Himiko's eyes lit up as she finished slurping some of her fruit punch. I heard about your next mission. How exciting. I honestly wish I could assist you, but I have another job coming next week, so I'll have to support you on the sidelines. She squealed while clapping her hands. The waiter then came back with Rabbit's iced tea, refilled Himiko's fruit punch, then began taking their orders. 1 bowl of katsudon and 1 plate of gyoza dumplings, with a side dish of ramen noodles. Once the order was written down, the waiter bowed and made his way towards the kitchen. Are you excited for your next mission? You're going to your dream school, you know? Himiko smiled as she took a bite of a watermelon from the fruit bowl appetizer that were cut up to be shaped like stars and moons. Not really. Sure, it's going to be at UA, but I'm going undercover as a support course student. But I think my saving grace is that I'm not interested in becoming a hero anymore. Rabbit took a bite of a moon-shaped pineapple slice. But Izuku Midoriya is, and he's attending UA Academy as a quirkless kid who's determined to help future heroes or anyone in any way possible, since he himself can't become a hero. Himiko's smile faltered a little bit, but she couldn't condemn him for saying such harsh things, even if she really wanted to. Yes, Izuku Midoriya was dead. He died almost a year ago now. But that doesn't change the fact that Rabbit is the evolution of Izuku Midoriya. Think of him as a metaphor for a chrysalis, or better, a phoenix. The spirit of Izuku Midoriya rose from the ashes of his dead self to become the new evolved form of his past life. Trigger Rabbit, the 15-year-old kid who has a very high IQ, very incredible analyst skills, and just like a rabbit, can run from any predator to outsmart them. Oh, you're using your dead name for the mission? Any reason? Himiko tilted her head while slurping the rest of her fruit punch. Izuku had a childhood friend by the name of Bakugo Katsuki. He's been already enrolled at the school since he performed with the highest points on the hero course entrance exam. So I had to use Izuku's dead name for this mission, just in case I do come across the explosive teen himself. Rabbit began slurping his own drink as well, earning a sympathetic look from his roommate across from him. Are you worried about him in any way? Like if he hurts you again? Himiko then leaned forward onto the table to face Rabbit with her terrifying feline smile that bared her incredibly sharp fangs. Because if he lays any of his gross sweaty hands on you, I'll devour him until every ounce of blood is drained from every orifice of his body. She then let out a chaotic giggle as she placed her head in her palms. And then I'll feed his dismembered corpse to carnivore. Oh, how he'll feast for the next couple of months. Himiko was now laughing so hard that her stomach began to cramp. Rabbit couldn't help but smile and chuckle at his roommate, that he absolutely adores. To answer your question, I'm not worried about Bakugo at all, Rabbit said, taking the last bite of his pineapple. The support course that I'm transferring to only helps the upperclassmen, so there really wouldn't be any reason for me to see him. And even if we did stumble across each other, I know some self-defense moves and talking points that would for sure make him leave me alone. Rabbit then sighed as he placed his head in his palm, a semi-frustrated expression spreading across his face. That is, if he's less aggressive than before, which is very unlikely. But oh well, either way I'm prepared. As Izuku leaned back into his seat, the waiter came back with trays of their piping hot food and poured the third refill of Himiko's fruit punch. Diggin' you too. Have a nice meal. The waiter bowed and began walking away to help another couple at a different booth. Rabbit and Himiko talked and shared their delicious food. They talked more about their upcoming missions, the bills they need to pay, and how they needed to go grocery shopping, especially since Himiko was gushing about how much she'd love to make bento lunches for Rabbit. Rabbit smiled and laughed at how cute she looked when rambling about getting a cookbook for different recipes, and how she could try baking some homemade milk bread for them. They ate until they were too full to finish their shared dessert that they decided to take to go. The bill came out to $7.45, which the two split evenly with their debit cards. Once the dinner was paid with their to-go box in hand, the two held hands and began walking back to their one-bedroom apartment. Both Rabbit and Himiko share a king-sized bed, and both go even on the bills, even cooking, so life became so much simpler for the two ever since they decided to live together. Should we take a shower and head to bed? Himiko asked, while stuffing their half-eaten dessert in the fridge. Yeah, I'm really exhausted after today. I also gotta clean my eye. Can you help me with it? Rabbit peeled off his eye patch, and the gauze pad that laid underneath to show Himiko the damage. She let out a sigh and placed her soft hands on his freckled cheeks to inspect the wound. Don't worry, I'll help you, bunny. Good thing you got slashed on your blind side, or else you would have definitely lost your eyesight if it was your good eye. Himiko smiled as she planted a small kiss to his cheek, making the taller boy blush. Come on then. Rabbit led her to their shared bathroom and plopped down on the closed toilet seat. Himiko began humming a tune as she pulled out the first aid kit, while also grabbing the eye drops from the medicine cabinet. Stay still now, bunny. I don't want to poke you. She kept his eyelids from closing. She squeezed out a small drop of the eye solution into his eye, letting the substance sink into the socket before squeezing out another drop. You say that, but you know I wouldn't feel a thing if you did. Rabbit chuckled, now closing his left eye to let the eye solution do its thing. I know that's silly, but still. She giggled as she now pulled out a rag that was run under warm water to rub over his bruised and sliced face. Are you doing okay? She asked softly, getting ready to wipe over the now scabbed cut. I'm okay, thank you, Himi. He hummed, now with both eyes closed while leaning against her touch. She hummed softly while taking her time deep cleaning the wound. After she got most of the dead skin wiped off, she started placing Neosporin on a fresh clean gauze pad to tape over his wounds. Of course, my love. She kissed the side of his face, then kissed over the now patched up eye, making her bunny blush and chuckle. The two then embraced each other under the light of the bathroom, with Rabbit nuzzling into her chest as Himiko rubbed soft circles around his back, and the other hand massaging his scalp. What the two had was love, but it was more of a platonic-like love. They shared kisses on the cheek and I love yous to each other, but it was out of friendship and true care. Maybe they were romantically in love. They should definitely discuss it one day, but as of right now, they love each other so much. They vowed to stay together until the end of their lives. Here's your bento box, bunny. Don't open it until lunch. It's a surprise. Himiko giggled while handing Rabbit the bento box that coincidentally had a rabbit design on it. While also having one of her favorite heart-patterned bandanas, let's ignore the faded blood stains wrapped around the bento box. Thank you so much, Himi. I promise I'll cherish every bite. Rabbit placed the bento box in his yellow backpack, along with the rest of his school supplies. Well, goddamn. Izuku is going back to school. Before his dark thoughts could swarm his head, Himiko leaned forward to hug her roommate and to plant a loving kiss over his eye patch, making his freckles light up from his cute shade of blush. You always do, bunny. She giggled, placing another kiss to his freckled cheek. I'll meet you after school, okay? I'll have a blue raspberry slushie waiting for you. She giggled while waving her hand in excitement, earning a bright gleam from Rabbit's eyes. Oh yes, please, Rabbit smiled wide, planting his own kiss on her cheek, now making his friend blush from his affection. Rabbit then leaned away from the hug to tug on his backpack over his very bruised and sore shoulders. I better get going now, my train is almost here. Rabbit opened the apartment door. I'll see you after school. I love you, Himi. He waved, getting ready to step out. I love you too, bunny. I can't wait. Himiko blew kisses at her friend, who smiled and blushed as he began hopping down the stairs. He really is a little bunny. With that, Rabbit was now left at the apartment and out came Izuku Midoriya, who started his walk to the metro station. There was a skip in his step and stars in his eyes once he pulled up his cat ear headphones that Himiko gifted him after her last paycheck that changed colors that he connected to his phone and began to play some music. Once on the train, Izuku stood in between two men and began nodding his head to the rhythm of the song. After a 25-minute ride on the train, Izuku was met with his stop and descended from the train with the rest of the passengers. Up the stairs from the underground he walked, came the sunlight that blinded his one eye from seeing what direction he needed to go. Once his eye adjusted from the sunlight, he found his direction of UA Academy, along with a lot of other students who wore the exact uniform as him. Izuku continued nodding his head to the beat as he, along with the other students, scanned their UA passes to enter the gates. He remembered Sir Ring explaining that their UA passes will be upgraded into a student ID with a photo and school stats. Once Izuku entered the building, he pulled off his headphones to shut them off along with his phone to toss them into his backpack. Izuku then looked up to read the signs above the doors to see which class was his. Now let's see, he's in Department Studio F, and he is on the correct side of campus, so it wouldn't be hard to find it. Aha. Here it is. Now then, let the mission begin. KABOOM. A giant explosion caused the giant metal doors to explode right off their hinges. With his fast reaction time, Izuku immediately saw a student go flying right out the door. But with all his speed and agility, he immediately caught the flying student, wrapped his arms around their figure, using his body to break their fall and roll from the impact. Once Izuku was able to regain focus, his first priority was to make sure the student wasn't hurt, while also making sure that they didn't sustain any injuries. Now he just needs to open his eyes and breasts. Izuku held his breath, going stiff as a board to not disrupt or make the student feel uncomfortable. Just let them recover at their own pace, Izuku, or wait. Isn't that more weirder? It's like having the person stay on his face as long as possible. Yeah, nope. Izuku needs to help them and not seem like a creep. Before Izuku could lift the person on top of him lifted up her goggles to reveal golden target-like eyes that could compete with Himiko's cat-like golden ones. Hey, you're on the department crew too? The student smiled with a few strands of thick pink dreadlocks falling over their face. The student then sat on, but began to straddle on top their thighs on either side of his waist of Izuku, who was contemplating on politely asking the student to stand, whilst also still trying to recover from the incident. Hatsum, it's your first day, and you already cause an explosion. Judging from the tone of that voice, that must have been his sensei, Power Loader. We don't even have any equipment out, so what did you even touch? The man himself, Higari Majima, Ake the excavation hero. Power Loader stumbled out with a couple of other students who were coughing from the amount of smoke that was pouring out from the room and was toxicating the hallway. But Mr. Power Loader, sir, I can't waste any precious time when there's so many components to make the perfect baby. The student Hatsum now stood up to lend out their hand for Izuku to take, which he did. In no time, the teen yanked Izuku's hand to pull him back on his feet. Classes have yet to begin, so why waste time when I could already be inventing another baby? And with that determination, the pink-haired student took off back into the classroom, leaving Power Loader to sigh and rub his eyes. Ah, that one. What am I going to do with her? Power Loader mumbled that Izuku definitely heard, whilst also letting Izuku know the gender of the student who caused the explosion, then took one look up at Izuku. Ah, you must be Izuku Midoriya, glad to have you, the man said, adjusting his yellow helmet that is the shape and form of an excavator claw. Then he held out his fingerless gloved hand for a handshake that Izuku returned. Welcome to the department studio, Class 1F. Here. He then tossed a brand new set of clothes at Izuku. In this department, we don't wear uniforms, we wear our workshop attire. Izuku took one look at the clothes, then back up at his sensei. Locker rooms are down the hall, so go change. He entered back into the now cleared out room, leaving Izuku to go down the hall to change. After Izuku made sure that these clothes were his size, which it was, if not slightly bigger and baggier, he finished changing. After tying the upper half of his coveralls around his waist, he looked at himself in the body-sized mirror. His uniform was identical to how Hatsum wore her attire: black tank top, thick work gloves, his coveralls tied around his waist, and a pair of black goggles. But instead of wearing the white shoes he was given, he kept his red chunky sneakers on. It's mandatory for the quirkless, but since his coveralls were tied around his waist, and with the gloves only going down to his wrists, all his scars were out in the open, as if they were on display at a mall or an art gallery. A fucked up art gallery at that, with all the faded and skin-raising scars, along with the fresh cuts that are scabbed, and bruises that were still purple from his last mission. Well, Izuku, if anyone asks, just tell them that you're quirkless. That's all it'll take for them to leave you alone. It's always been that easy. With a deep breath, and he tying his hair back in a messy fashion, Izuku left the locker room and entered the classroom where the majority of the students had already arrived and were already in their workshop attire. The room went quiet as they stared at Izuku. I mean, if you walked into a classroom with an eye patch on your left eye, with scars and bruises that covered 80% of your body, ironic right? Like paint splatter. Of course you'd be stared at. Especially given how small Izuku is. He's 5'5", while everyone around him besides Hatsune and a few girls were either 5'7" or over. Izuku kept a stern expression on his face as he opened his locker number and placed his backpack and UA uniform inside neatly. With the slam of the locker that echoed throughout the room, he turned back around and was greeted with more eyes looking in his direction. But they soon looked away as if trying to make it seem like they weren't looking. Izuku rolled his eyes and took his spot on an empty stool, waiting for class to begin. Hey, Izuku could hear this student's footsteps before they even moved, making him turn his head to look over at one of his classmates who had a raccoon-type ears, eyes, and tail. They were painfully nervous, making Izuku sigh and turn towards them. Can I help you? Said in a tone that sounded slightly annoyed as he waited patiently for this person to answer. But in their saving grace, the bell rang with Power Loader now entering the classroom. All right, kiddos, put your stuff away and let's head down to orientation. Izuku was the first one out of his seat and out the door, immediately walking ahead of the class down towards the auditorium where orientation was taking place. Once he made it, the place was already packed with a few sections of empty seats that were reserved for different classes, letting Izuku easily find the section for Class 1F Department Studio. Izuku took his seat at the very end, allowing him to have easy access to leave onto the aisle. Soon everyone was seated, and thankfully it wasn't awkward since Hatsune sat next to him and kept quiet. Thank Kami. Soon the lights in the auditorium dimmed, and out a loud scream that made everyone jump. Alrighty, all my little listeners. Yamada Hisashi, aka the voice hero. Present Mike stepped up on stage with a cordless microphone in his hands. Let me hear you say yeah. The entire audience went wild with enthusiasm, very much pleasing the hero. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, he screamed in delight, letting the audience to calm down. Okay, my newcomers, welcome to your Hero Academia. And to our returning students, welcome back. We're all so excited for this new year of learning and improvement. And for you newbies, we can't wait to see what you can do. Everyone in the auditorium cheered as the screen above Present Mike turned on and showed a list of students' names from highest to average test scores from the written exam. Above my head shows a list of points that our new students had scored on the written exam. Izuku skimmed through all the names and numbers, but strangely he noticed that his name wasn't on there. He scored the highest score ever recorded, and his name wasn't there. How could that be? Wow, look at how smart you all are. I've never seen such numbers. Of course you're shocked. You scored an 83 when we were in school. Laughs erupted from the audience from the sassy comment an older woman spoke who whipped her whip, causing a loud strike to echo from the crowd. Izuku looked over and confirmed they were none other than Kayama Nimiri, aka the rated R hero herself, Midnight. Anyway, Present Mike shouted, in a tone that was evenly matched with Midnight's sarcasm. When really he was trying his hardest not to laugh, he continued. I wouldn't have brought this up if a new student hadn't broken the record for the highest score on the entrance exam. The number 1-in-600 was flashed onto the screen with confetti shooting out on either side of President Mike, who striked a flashy pose. Oh shit, Izuku immediately sank in his seat, now realizing why his name wasn't on that list. Fuck, he could hear the audience gasp in shock from seeing such a high number, especially since the highest on the list was 990. The little listener responsible for breaking the record for the highest score on the written exam belongs to Class 1F, Department Studio. You gotta be fucking kidding. Izuku Midoriya. A light shone down upon Izuku, who looked terrified from what was happening. And what made it worse was the way Hatsune began to elbow him with an excited smile on her face. Kami fuck. If he could, he'd rather have Carniver defer him aka eat him alive right then and there to avoid this shit. But Izuku had no choice but to wave awkwardly, hoping that they could move on from the topic right away. There's our star student. Come on down and give us a speech. Yeah. As the hero's arms were flailing in the air, along with students chanting for Izuku to make a speech Hatsum, and the student who sat behind him were starting to literally push more like lift Izuku out of his seat in order to make him head down to the stage. Izuku put up a little bit of resistance, but he didn't want to cause a scene, so in defeat, he gave up on fighting back and relatively started his journey down the stairs with a slight stumble and up the stage where present Mike was. With each step, the charms on his shoes swayed from the movement. His cotton fabric eye patch showing off the embroidered rabbit logo, and his injuries that were painted on his body were all on display for almost everyone at UA. Kami fuck. After this, he's definitely going to get high. Once on the stage, present Mike handed the microphone that he was holding to Izuku and zoomed to the side with 2 thumbs up to give the kid some room. Izuku was left up on stage with the spotlight shining down on him, literally with live footage of him being projected onto the giant screen above him. Okay, Rabbit, what the fuck are you going to say? Fuck, he was not prepared for this shit. I mean, if his role in this mission was Izuku Midoriya, what would he say? After a few short seconds of battling his 2 personalities, and hoping to get high after this, he spoke. As you can tell from my shoes, I'm quirkless. He slightly flashed his shoes, showing all the eyes that were trained on him to see who and what he truly was. A few nights ago, he began, I was taking an Uber to a restaurant my roommate was meeting me at. The man who was driving me noticed my shoes and apologized for how society has treated me, and so many other quirkless people. Izuku looked down at his shoes, with the screen above him showing live footage of his shoes, showing everyone all the faded and smeared written slurs, insults, and spider lilies that were drawn on them with a permanent marker. He told me a story about how he had a quirkless friend back in grade school. Izuku then looked up, letting out a deep breath. Only for that teen to be killed by the gang known as Strikeout when they were in their first year. Izuku sighed. Ever since the Uber driver told him this story, he did his own research on the incident. His name was Haruto Ito. He was 15 years old like myself. He used henim pronouns, and he was quirkless just like me. He wore blue-colored sneakers, which in case you didn't know, wait. He chuckled slightly. Who am I kidding? Society has made it well known that red, blue, and yellow sneakers are what identifies us as quirkless. He then waved his hand. Sorry, I got off track. But the point is he had the charm of the deceased pro hero, Equal, on his shoes. Equal was the balanced hero, who ranked number 57 in the pro hero rankings. Before he passed, Equal treated everyone with respect and equality, because at the time there were riots and threats against quirkless and quirked people that left society scared to leave their homes, let alone stay at their homes. Izuku stopped in his tracks from slowly walking in circles on stage. But to him, it was mere common sense for everyone to be equal. He didn't believe that having a quirk makes you better, nor did not having a quirk makes you lesser than society. He believed that no matter who you are or what you were born with, you deserve love and respect from the start to the end. The crowd clapped for how true the statement was, only for Izuku to bring up the sad truth of what happened to the pro hero, and why he started talking about him in the first place. Pro hero Equal was killed in action 10 years ago by the leader of the Strikeout gang when they committed the mass murder of 74 quirkless people across the country. They would beat their victims until they were semi-unconscious, only to then end their lives by choking and hanging them with the laces of their own shoes, the shoes still attached. The majority of the audience gasped out in horror, with the rest of them only staring in disbelief at the horrors they were hearing and possibly imagining. What would be the nail on the coffin would be showing the actual crime scene photos. But he's not here to traumatize anyone. If they want, they could look it up themselves like Rabbit did. Ever since Equal was killed, us quirkless people have lost our pillar of hope. Yes, we have All Might, who is our number one hero now. but he never did anything compared to what Equal did for us. Now this caused some confusion to the audience. What I mean is, Equal stayed in contact with everyone he saved, including the quirkless people who attempted suicide. Has All Might stayed in contact with anyone he saved? Has he saved any suicidal victims? The auditorium was dead silent with slight murmuring echoing in the background. Even the heroes close to Izuku turned to look at one another with concerned eyes. 10 months ago, I was told by a pro hero that I couldn't become a hero since I was quirkless, and that I would be better off if I became a doctor, a lawyer, or a police officer. The audience gasped, making Izuku chuckle from the reaction. And they're right. He chuckled with his arms stretched out in amusement. I would have been better off working in either of those professions, but what kind of message would that give to another quirkless child? That we can't become heroes because we lack the one thing that is apparently necessary to become a hero now. Izuku sighed, but looked up at the audience with determination in his eyes. After that pro hero told me I couldn't become a hero, I committed suicide off the building they left me on, only for me to fail and survive. Izuku pulled off his eye patch as the screen above him showed everyone his faded and freshly scarred left side of his freckled face, along with his silver blind eyeball that brandished an X over his sclera and iris from his recent injury. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital with a basilar skull fracture, popped eye socket, dislocated shoulders, a sprained neck, broken ribs, broken legs, and a shattered kneecap. But I survived. With the microphone in hand, Izuku pounded his fist against his now still beating heart, and with a deep, stuttering breath he shouted, "I may not be a hero, and I may never become one, but I am determined to help and inspire you." Izuku pointed out to the audience. The next generation of heroes to see that our hero society is still broken. That it's not black and white. There's so many gray areas that we tend to remiss or choose not to acknowledge. Which is why I, as a quirkless kid who died for 2 minutes and 33 seconds, am here now on this stage to show you how cruel our society is. To now inspire you to become better than our last generation. To become even better heroes for the future generation. I want all of you, in every department, 1st to 3rd year, hero course, general education, support course, and management, to know that every one of us has the heart of a hero. So let's make this year better than ever before. Let's fix this broken society with everything we got. He lifted his head with determination reflecting in his one eye. So let me hear you say plus ultra. The entire auditorium stood up and screamed the loudest, plus ultra, that a certain first-year hero course class heard from all the way outside. After Izuku finished his speech, while also riding the high off his slight panic attack, the audience cheered, whistled, and clapped for him, with a vast majority of students running from their seats to lift Izuku into the air to continue cheering for him. Izuku took one look at the UA staff and saw nothing but tears in their eyes from the powerful and emotional speech he gave, and before Izuku knew it, he was being carried by the crowd out the auditorium doors. Well, I guess orientation is over now. But little did everyone know that standing behind the stage of the auditorium was the skeletal figure of the pro hero who left that quirkless kid on the roof of the building nearly a year prior. And oh, how his heart sank into his stomach acid. After that cliché of a movie ending that happened after orientation, eventually everyone had to head back to class. But that didn't stop some students from telling Izuku that they were happy to see him alive and well, while also hoping to get to know him better and to see him continue thriving in life. Hell, even some students asked if they could see Izuku during lunch, which Izuku had to accept after being crowded by a sea of students in front of his class. Izuku gave them all a kind smile and wished them well on their educational journey, and then ran into the department studio to hide under a table. Wow, Midoriya, you really inspired everybody today. I know, my hearts are still racing. 2 of his classmates smiled, while doing a little dance from the excitement. While under the table, Izuku was already planning his escape route. Gee, Midoriya, you're so cool. Here I was so nervous to speak to you. The raccoon student from earlier smiled down at him. The student then held out their hand to help Izuku out from under the table. My name is Haruki Akawa. My pronouns are him, and I would like it if we could become friends. The boy smiled brightly as his puffy ringtail began swaying from side to side. Friendship? Is that something Rabbit should have for the mission? Or would it compromise his mission? But then again, he's not Rabbit right now. He's Izuku Midoriya. So if having friends would make his character look less suspicious. Sure. It's nice to meet you, Akawa. Izuku took hold of the student's hands, letting the boy lift him up from under the table. Damn, with strength and height like his, Sir Ring would definitely have him in his gang. Oh please, call me Haruki. I don't mind, he smiled. Oh well, call me Izuku, or Izu or Zuku for short. He chuckled awkwardly. Ugh, why did he have to do the whole friend thing? Call me Izuku. Learn to keep your mouth shut. I'll call you Izu. I'm very happy to get to know you, and I'm glad we're in the same class. His smile was so kind that it made Izuku's phantom heart light up in ways he didn't think was possible again. Mom made his heart light like that. Can we be friends too, Midoriya? A girl with white and pink gradient hair with Sakura-shaped pupils, with the same design on her cheeks, shouted in excitement, causing Izuku to jump a little. Oh same, can we be friends? A boy with actual stars floating above his head, as if his head was a planet, shouted as well. More students began to swarm him, their voices becoming more faded with every word and turning into a high ringing tone that began to hurt his ears. It's getting too crowded in here now. Shit. Izuku can't take this. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. Back off. He needs some space. The girl with the pink dreadlocks stood in front of him with her hands outstretched to add some space between her and the crowd that swarmed his personal space. Yes, we all saw how amazingly brave Midoriya is, but remember he is suffering from a lot of trauma, so please, one step at a time with him. Once he's ready, he'll give you an answer. Now please, give him some space. The crowd immediately took a major step back, letting the greenette have some needed space to calm his racing breath. Deep breaths, Midoriya. Take your time. Izuku looked up to see. She was now facing him with such kind eyes that remind him so much of Himiko. Seeing such familiar eyes is what helped Izuku to calm his racing heart. But fuck, this isn't enough. Thank you everyone, believe me, I would really love having friends, but please don't crowd me like that. I honestly got nervous. Izuku smiled with a less trembling voice. Thank you Hatsune, you're amazing. Izuku then made his way past the crowd in a hurry. I'm sorry, please excuse me. Just like a rabbit, the greenette dashed out the door to enter the locker room that he entered before to change into his workshop attire. Once inside, he passed all the lockers to enter the restroom stalls where he locked himself in one of the many stalls. Thank Kami, it was quiet and empty. Or else, it would be very embarrassing if anyone witnessed him having a panic attack that left him crying. Get it together, you fuck. Just calm down, just calm down. Rabbit whispered to himself as he shook his hands repeatedly to get his blood flowing, pacing back and forth in the small space that seemed to be getting smaller and smaller by the second. In a panic for needing to calm down, he pulled out a single 10,000 to roll up in a small tube, then pulled out the one thing that will get him close to heaven. Glass. It's not actual glass, nor is it just any kind of glass that any junkie could buy off the street. No. This is Captain Sir Ringa's glass, a drug that could never be compared with anything else. A drug that has gone under the radar for years and could send you to heaven and hell. A drug that Izuku took one night surrounded by drug addicts years above him and has never come down from the euphoric high. Now he needs it. He needs it right now. He tore off his eye patch to pull up a very tiny zipper from the side that unzipped the inside of the fabric, for it revealed a very small plastic bag that was filled with the sparkling dust, all crushed up and ready to snort. Rabbit laid out a small line that he used his credit card to help straighten. Then, with empty lungs and the rolled yen pressed into his nose, he sniffed the entire line all in one inhale. And my fucking god, how the wave of euphoria consumed his entire being into the sea of ecstasy. Now Izuku Midoriya feels alive once again. He's back from the dead and can continue to live the high life for the next few weeks. Goddamn, are drugs fucking amazing. Izuku stashed his stash away in his eye patch, wiped down the small ledge he used to snort his line, and with full serotonin coursing through his brain, he walked out that stall and locker room as if he was a goddamn king that ruled this school. Let's be real here. He could easily have the world under his thumb if he tried. Just in time before the bell, Izuku re-entered his classroom with all types of eyes on him. But this time he wasn't scared, or getting ready to cry, nope. He pulled on a huge smile on his face and ran towards Hatsune for a hug that she immediately returned. "You're amazing, Hatsune. Thank you for standing up for me," he shouted like a little kid who was happy to see their parent or anyone they loved. "Call me May, we're besties now." She pulled Izuku back to hold his freckled hands. "Because with that huge ick of yours, we'll definitely create wonderful babies together." She laughed while wrapping her arm around his shoulders and spinning around. "BB babies?" he shouted in confusion with a mix of pure terror, with his face turning into a tomato, looking more like a strawberry. "Don't worry, kid, that's just what she calls her inventions." Power Loader has finally entered the classroom with stacks of papers in his arms. "Now take your seats, everyone. Class has begun." Power Loader started off his class by going over the main safety drills when working in the workshop, and going over some of the equipment they would be using that would help repair and create new equipment. All the students got to try out some of the support items that were made by the upperclassmen, and were tasked on what they could upgrade on the gadget they were assigned. The hour went by as quickly as May's many explosions. In that time, Izuku was able to upgrade a pair of knuckle brass to materialize sharp spikes to add some extra punch. Izuku also got to thank Power Loader since the man let him keep it. Izuku also got to upgrade his plain work goggles that could now detect heat signals, have night vision mode, enhanced vision, and a mini flashlight that shines from in between the goggles. Now what made Izuku come back to his fanboy analysis self was the even more exciting upgrades that everyone else created. For example, one classmate turned a pair of heat-resistant gloves into a pair of fire-bending gloves. Another student turned their anti-gravity boots into air-walking boots. And Hatsune turned a regular-looking mask to generate ice when you breathe out through it. Ah, his class is amazing. After the absolute chaotic and fun homeroom class, next was English language with Present Mike. His class was fun also since Izuku was already fluent in English from all his past drug deals, so he was able to help his fellow classmates when they needed help. Then came math and science with ectoplasm. Rabbit was surprised when reading the Pro Heroes file to find out that ectoplasm is his actual name. Cool. Let's just say those classes felt like grade school level work for Izuku, proving that he finished first out of all the students with amazing grades, and got a little too embarrassed by how well he knew a S cup is exactly 236,588 ml, which is rounded up to 240 ml or 240 grams. And if you were to ask if he said that word for word, he would deny your accusation. All their classes came and went so fast that it surprised Izuku that lunch had arrived. Izuku grew excited from the curiosity of what Himiko had cooked for him for lunch. He giggled like a schoolgirl at the memory of Himiko shooing him out of the kitchen so she could cook him a surprise meal for his bento lunch. Now he just can't wait to see. The moment the bell rang, everyone was already out of their seats in a pile against the doorway. "Oh, Midoriya, before you head to lunch, Principal Nezu would like to see you in his office," Power Loader said very calmly, as if he wasn't witnessing Izuku getting dragged out of the classroom by his new friends, and revealing a sea of students who were waiting for Izuku as well. Maybe this was a good thing. "Awa, I was looking forward to lunch with you, Izu-kun." The girl with the white and pink gradient hair, who was named Nakamura Sakura, whined out in disappointment along with the sea of people outside of the classroom. "Yeah, bummer. Quick, go see what he wants, and then come back, quick." His other classmate with the stars above his head, Akira Ryusei, began lightly pushing Izuku out the door against the sea of students who created a pathway for Izuku to walk through. Yeah, go go go, Haruki cheered, joining Ryusei in playfully shoving Izuku out the door. Hurry, so we can get started on creating more babies together. The way the crowd let out enthusiasm of uos, and whistling even some, go Izuku, caused the boy to once again turn into a strawberry from being flustered. Not even getting the time to recover from being flustered, the four students began shoving Izuku into the direction of the principal's corridor, now having the sea of students leave them for lunch.
Okay, I'm going. Save me a seat in case I come back.
Izuku shouted with a wave as he began jogging down the halls with his bento box in hand. After a few minutes of speed walking along with a few wrong turns, he managed to find the grand doors that held the principal inside. Okay, Rabbit, you're calm and collected. You didn't do anything wrong besides doing drugs in the bathroom. Nezu just wants to talk about what happened during orientation. That's all. Wait, could it be possible he knew about the bathroom? No, that's not possible. If he knew, then Rabbit would have already been tossed out the doors. But what if Nezu didn't want to cause a scene, and this is his chance to now get Rabbit isolated? For all he knew, the police were behind those doors ready to tackle him with handcuffs. God fucking damn it, Rabbit. God, you just had to dope yourself up just to get yourself to stop fucking crying. Kami, fuck, you really are pathetic. Okay, Rabbit. Just breathe. Whatever happens, happens. Remember that your life has no purpose, that you're worthless, that no one will care if you die, and that the bright side of all of that is that if you get killed or commit suicide, you'll see your wonderful mother once again. You'll hug her, tell her over and over that you love her, and that they will be better in their next lives. With a few deep breaths, and trying to seem sober as possible, Izuku knocked on the doors, opened it, and peered inside. Hello? Principal Nezu, you asked for me? Izuku stepped inside to see, thankfully, no cops, and the stoat himself sitting at his desk with piping hot tea and a stack of files in front of him. Ah, Izuku Midoriya, just the student I wish to see. Please come in and have a seat. The stoat slipped off of his seat with the files and teacup in his paws. Izuku was a little hesitant about the offer, but his spatial awareness has never failed him once, and from what his senses told him, he truly was alone with the stoat. Trusting his instincts, Izuku closed the door behind him and took a seat on the large couch that had an empty teacup placed on the coffee table in front of him. Nezu placed down the files and teacup on the table and took his seat across from the student, seeing Izuku place down his bento box on the table, but off to the side, just in case Nezu wanted to show whatever it was that were contained in the stack of files. How has your day been here so far? Make any new friends? The stoat smiled kindly. Yeah, I made a lot of friends after that whole fiasco I caused at orientation. With a slight tremble in his voice, he continued. Is that why you called me in here, sir? With a tone full of childish worry, Nezu began pouring some hot tea into the empty teacup in front of Midoriya. Yes, if that's all right with you. He smiled, finishing pouring the tea into his cup and placing the tea kettle down beside him. I understand that you must be going through some undiagnosed trauma due to your medical statements I read. Oh, and I would love to speak with you about your entrance exam score. It's fantastic. Nezu took a sip of his tea. I'm sorry that this meeting was so sudden. Trust me when I say that you're not in any trouble. I just really wish to speak with you. You truly fascinated me, Midoriya. His smile was so kind that it made any anxiety that was coursing through Izuku and Rabbit die out like a burning candle. Please, sir, ask away. I really don't mind. Izuku smiled while grabbing both the teacup and saucer to take a sip of the deliciously brewed tea. Never in all my years of being the principal of this fine establishment have I ever seen so many students come together and become so motivated for the new year. And my, how you had my staff cry from your emotional speech in the teacher's lounge. Nezu let out a small chuckle. You were as inspiring as All Might up on that stage, Midoriya. You truly did inspire everyone there, and you truly showed true heroism with that spirit of determination. Izuku spread a true smile that held kindness from his words. After taking a sip of his tea, he placed it back down on the table and sighed. Thank you, sir, really thank you. But I really shouldn't be praised. Izuku began rubbing the back of his neck. It's kinda like saying I now deserve respect and recognition after going through major trauma for being quirkless. Izuku sighed once again, but this time he peeled off his eye patch to look Nezu in the eye, facing the stoat with his now exposed blind and deeply scarred left eye. It hurts, sir, it really does, but I'm very thankful that I'm alive to inspire others. This has been my dream school growing up. And it wasn't until what happened to me that I realized that I could never achieve my goals. But that doesn't mean I should give up when I can still help others. Izuku put on a small, yet sorrowful smile. Yeah, Izuku Midoriya couldn't, neither could Rabbit. That's not true, Midoriya. Nezu was now clasping both his paws together, his eyes closed as if getting ready to say something truly important. Now that scared Rabbit. Please don't give him hope after all this time. He's already fucking dead. Please remember your test results, your medical records, and your history as a whole. Nezu slid over the giant file that was taunting Izuku the moment he saw the principal hold them as if they were precious. Opening it up just showed his file of the dead child that had fake school and medical records from the help of Sir Ring pulling his strings. Yes, I'm very sorry you had to experience such abuse from society, and going from home to home ever since your mother passed away, but you're still here alive. Now in the comfort space of Yua Academy. You are now under my care, and I take very good care of my students from the moment they walk in and leave campus. Nezu then gave Izuku such kind eyes that made Izuku physically cringe from how scared and how awful he felt. He should be happy. But he doesn't care, it doesn't matter. He's only here to do his one job, that's it. Midoriya, what I'm saying is that you can still become a hero, especially at my academy. But I can see in your eye that you're not very passionate about it. His eyes then dimmed. At least, not anymore. Kami, how Izuku's arms twitched from the shiver that crawled up his entire body. Please stop. Please just stop talking. But you showed everyone here that you do have the heart of a true hero. Nezu then hopped out of his seat to stand close to Izuku with a smile that was making Izuku want to run away. Don't smile at him like that. Stop it. Stop it. Which is why I want you to become my personal student. He clapped his paws together in excitement, his eyes also closing from the wonderful thought. This caught Izuku completely off guard. Why, you're S. and stud dentist, sir. Wait. Do you mean as in? The stoat beat him to the punch. Yes, becoming my protege. That's the word Izuku was dreading to hear. You scored the highest test result ever recorded on the written entrance exam. And upon hearing and seeing the fascinating results and feedback from all your other class subjects, I really do want you as my protege, Midoriya. Izuku just stared back at the very happy creature, as if his brain just went blue-screened. It did after a very awkward minute of rewiring his brain cells. The panic was settling in. Wait, hold on. Izuku didn't mean to say that as loud as he did, seeing that Nezu had paused with his smile faltering. Pardon for my voice, sir, but wouldn't me becoming your protege mean that I'll completely switch classes in order for me to take courses from you? If the answer was yes, then Rabbit was screwed. The mission would be postponed or cancelled just because Rabbit had to play Izuku fucking Midoriya a little too goddamn well. Shit. Oh, do not worry, Midoriya. You'll still be taking your assigned classes, but if you were to take my offer, then I would have to rearrange your schedule in order for you to have that hour with me instead. Oh, thank goodness. Rabbit was so ready to call Sir Ring about failing the mission, and then go meet Carnivore so the mutant wolf-eagle hybrid would devour him. That is if the outcome was different, but Rabbit gets to live another day. Hooray. But, sir, this offer sounds like a dream come true. But there's something I should mention. Izuku sighed softly whilst pulling his eye patch back on. My time here at Yua is only temporary. This caused Nezu's ears to perk up. It's written here that I'm in foster care, and you should know that the family I stay with are known to send me all over the country. Izuku took his last gulp of his cup of tea. So as much as I really would want to stay here and learn from you, I can't. He chuckled. It's funny that I knew that I wouldn't be able to stay for all 3 years. But that didn't stop me from enrolling anyway and doing all I could at the best hero academy in the country. Izuku smiled at the kind stoat. His smile reflected how happy he was, but that was just his masquerade. Truthfully, Rabbit did get very scared from all of Nezu's kind words and offers, which caused the drugs in his system to turn on him and nearly sent him into a panic attack. But after getting reaffirmed that his mission is far from over, he was now calm and collected. Izuku was happy, but Rabbit didn't care. Izuku watched Nezu ponder for a moment. Yes, Nezu did know that Midoriya was in foster care. And yes, he did come to a theory that Midoriya's stay was temporary. Believe him, he was hoping the student was staying. Which is why, as the high-specs quirk owner, he was prepared for this outcome. Yes, Midoriya, I do know that you're in foster care. That is why most of our staff members are foster care qualified to take in any child. So if you wish to continue going here, one of my staff members will be qualified to take you in until you're of age and graduate. Okay, shit. Rabbit should have been prepared for this kind of situation since he is only here for 6 months. So it was always part of the plan that Izuku was going to be transferred out eventually. If this mission is going to proceed, then it's very fortunate to Rabbit for who was chosen to play his foster parents. Believe him, not even all the money or drugs in the world would make them let Rabbit go. Addiction has all kinds of meanings, and in all honesty, Rabbit couldn't care less about the outcome. He didn't care if he lived or died since he's a ghost. But if he was Izuku Midoriya, he would have gladly taken the opportunity without a second to spare. He would have given his all just to become a hero. But that Izuku is gone. He's fucking dead. Sir, that's very kind of you, but my foster family has made it very clear that I'm only here temporarily. Heck, they gave up when I begged and begged them to allow me to enroll. Izuku chuckled in a playful tone. Believe me, I would love to be your protege, but it would only have to be temporary. Izuku then looked up at the time, seeing that lunchtime was only 30 minutes away from ending. If I may, sir, I would like to head out to eat. Lunch is almost over, and I have yet to touch my food, he said, glancing at his bento box. Nezu nodded and smiled. Of course, Midoriya. I'm very sorry our talk took so long, you're excused. Nezu bowed to Midoriya, letting him know how thankful he was for the talk. I would love to speak with you again some other time, and please know that my office is always open if you change your mind or need to talk about anything. Nezu began waving at Izuku, who was already standing by the giant doors. Thank you, sir, and yes, I would like to talk with you again. Also, the tea was very delicious. Izuku waved and out the door he went. Not even a second after closing the door, his senses made him stop dead in his tracks, only to see who he was stopped by. Well, if it wasn't the golden-haired, skeletal figure himself. Oh god fucking damn it. Oh, Pete, pardon me. I. The very slender man must have been very shocked to see Izuku Midoriya of all people, in different circumstances. Looking at how skinny and sunk in All Might's face was, Izuku definitely would have dismissed him as another junkie that was on the verge of withdrawal, because clearly he was here to see Nezu. Not go pale from seeing the ghost of the quirkless boy he left on that rooftop all those months ago. Excuse me, sir, I'm heading to lunch. Izuku just dismissed the man like they didn't have history, a traumatic one at that, and began to start walking down the hall. There wasn't even a sound, but Rabbit sensed it, and he did not expect it when the blonde man immediately ran in front of Midoriya to stop him. And Midoriya, my boy, please pardon my intrusion, but All Might never would have thought fate would take him to come face to face with the one mistake he made almost 11 months ago now. Please. All Might then crouched down onto the floor, placing both his head and hands down on the cold floor. I wish to apologize for what I said to you that day on the roof. I wish to apologize for just leaving you there without taking you to get medical attention. I wish to apologize for being the reason you tried committing suicide. and I truly apologize for failing to be the hero you needed. Izuku Midoriya, I, Toshinori Yagi, am so very sorry, and beg for your forgiveness. All Might stayed bowed so low on the floor, giving the child in front of him all of his attention, sorrows, and respect, while also waiting for any kind of response from the kid. Sir, please stand up. Okay, that wasn't really a response Toshinori was expecting, but he stayed low to the ground. I can't do so, my boy. I want you to accept my deepest apology. I am so sorry, my boy. Please forgive me. Toshinori expected for the boy to say something else or heck, even walk away from him. What he didn't expect was for young Midoriya to grab a hold of his arm to lift the scrawny man up from the ground. Sir, please get up. The floor is dirty, and I wouldn't want your suit to get dirty. Toshinori was a little hurt from how Midoriya was dismissing his apology. Sure, it hurts. But that's nothing compared to what All Might put that child through that day. In other words, what Midoriya was doing was much less heart-wrenching compared to what All Might did to him. But All Might refused to walk away this time. Fate has reunited them for a reason, and he would be damned for walking away again. Midoriya, please. Toshinori was now gripping onto the child's shoulders, his vein-popping, skeletal hands twitching from his nerves. Please, my boy, I am so sorry. Tears were threatening to pool his eyes to drown them in all his guilt and regret. Midoriya had finally looked up to look into the sunken eyes of Toshinori, seeing how his blue eyes were now glossed over by his tears. All Might. Just his hero name being spoken from that childlike voice sent shivers through Toshinori. I honestly thought I'd never see you again. Izuku spoke, his one good eye gazing up at the hero before him. And I can't say I'd hope I wouldn't. He spoke truthfully as he began to take hold of the hero's wrists. But please understand when I tell you that it's okay. Toshinori's eyes widened in surprise. That day, I asked you a question that would have changed my life forever, and you answered it with full honesty. Izuku then pushed the hero's arms away from his shoulders. So what happened after that encounter is not on you. I made a choice that changed my life. Yes, I shouldn't have done what I did, but I was barely clinging on to life at that point. But I survived, All Might. I moved on. Izuku now took hold of the hero's hand to place it against his own beating heart, and with a kind smile he said, I'm okay. Now Toshinori began crying. He reached out to hug the boy who was alive and well, thanking the universe and their God for letting Toshinori hold the boy in his arms. He has to make this right this time. Once the boy was in his embrace, he apologized over and over, crying out his pain on the boy who awkwardly patted and rubbed the hero's back in some sort of kind gesture. Oh Kami, please make him stop. After a few minutes of Izuku praying to be let go, eventually he couldn't take it anymore and had to break the hug. Thankfully, instead of coming up with a very lame excuse, his stomach saved him as it began to rumble from hunger. I should be heading off to lunch now, but thank you All Might for apologizing. Izuku bowed to the elder, who was now wiping his eyes with the heel of his palm. Please call me Toshinori, it's only appropriate. The hero softly said, having Izuku nod. Very well, Toshinori, I'm going now. I'll see you around. And with that, Izuku took off into the direction of the cafeteria to finally eat his lunch. Now, as we discussed before, Rabbit has great spatial awareness, so when talking to Toshinori, he felt the presence of another person around the corridor, but he didn't get to see who it was since they were clearly trying to stay hidden to listen. This person must be very skillful since it took Rabbit a minute to figure out the person had left. A staff member possibly. Oh well, it doesn't matter though. Nothing about the conversation would be a cause for concern. Besides the fact that someone now knows that it was All Might who caused his demise. But if rumors do go around, then Izuku or All Might can come up with a statement that it was a false rumor or a misunderstanding. Simple. Hey, what took so long? Lunch is nearly over. Hatsune smiled with the remaining 3 bites of food still on her tray. She then patted the seat next to her, letting Izuku sit down with a sigh as he began to untie his bento box as last. I'm sorry that the meeting took a while. The tea was just too delicious. Izuku smiled while grabbing a hold of his chopsticks and finally opening up his bento box to see a delicious display of fried food and vegetables. Oh, Izu, you dropped this, Sakura said, while waving what seems to be a heart-shaped sticky note. Izuku raised his eyebrow in confusion as he grabbed onto the sticky note to read its contents. Have a delicious lunch, Bunny. I made you squid tomato rice croquette, mushroom bacon rolls, bonito cabbage corn salad, and salty rice balls with lettuce at the bottom. Please enjoy. I love you. 3. Himiko 3. Izuku gasped with excitement. His cheeks also flared up from his rosy red blush as he began crunching into the panko fried rice croquette. The moment the taste hit his mouth, he was humming in delight with his legs swinging back and forth. If you were to ask anyone that had walked by to say hello to the greenette on what he looked like when eating his lunch, they would all say how cute he looked with his blushing freckled face and the literal hearts emitting from his form. Wow, Izu, you were hungry. Haruki smiled as he watched his new friend scrape the last bits of rice left in his bento box. Izuku's mouth was too full to speak another word. No, literally, his cheeks were puffed out like a chipmunk. The homemade food was just too good to stop and talk. Thank you, Himi. Izuku clasped his hands together to say a thankful prayer for the delicious meal he was blessed to eat. The hearts were still emitting from Izuku's head, showing how much he loved his food and the reaction he received from his new group of friends. By the time Izuku finished his lunch, the hour ended, so it was back to classes again until the end of the day. The last remaining classes were Miss Midnight's and free hour in their homeroom. After that, the day was over. As Izuku was taking notes from Miss Midnight's lectures, he realized he's going to have to call Sir Ring about the hunter in the woods. Oh boy, Sir Ring is definitely not going to like this. Rabbit was already dreading his punishment. Last time he teased the hunters on a mission, Sir Ring withheld his fix of glass and caused Rabbit to suffer real bad from the withdrawals for days. He has the scars to prove it. So yeah, Sir Ring is definitely going to kick Rabbit in the teeth and then deal with the situation on his own. Aw shit. Rabbit was dreading to make that phone call, so while thinking about it too much, time decided to be cruel, which made his classes fly by quickly than he anticipated. Curse you, universe. While packing up all the rest of his things, he turned his phone back on to see that Himiko had sent him a selfie of her with 2 slushies in her hands. Izuku stared fondly at her smile that was so adorable, it left Rabbit with butterflies in his stomach. Ooh, Izu, what you looking at? Sakura gushed out with a laugh, trying desperately to look at Izuku's phone screen to see what made Izuku so flustered. Just a picture of my friend, she bought me a slushie. Right on, Kwa. The bell rang and out Izuku ran to the exit of the school, with most of his class running behind him. Ooh, is she here? Let's meet her. Ryusei shouted as he tailed behind Izuku to meet this girl that had his friend blushing like crazy. Izuku laughed out loud as he began running faster to the entrance. Now all 4 of his friends began chasing him. After outrunning and reaching the entrance of the building with heavy breathing, Izuku was greeted with Himiko jumping and waving with the slushies in her hands. Zuzu, there's my love, she screamed with excitement while running with their slushies. Izuku chuckled as she handed one of the cold beverages in his hands, earning herself a quick kiss on her cheek. Thank you, Himi. Now let's go before I get caught up with my friends. Izuku immediately took hold of Himiko's hand, making her giggle from behind, and ran down the sidewalk that led to the campus grand gates. While, of course, Izuku was getting looks from everyone he ran past since he was running away with a mysterious and very pretty girl. Izuku could already hear the gossip of him dating this mysterious girl, and that's a rumor Izuku would wear with pride. In the distance, he could hear his friends shout. But as the very best stealth dealers they were, they managed to easily escape the scene without anyone following them. After the 2 young teens laughed from the chase, they used their downtime to walk and drink their slushies to the train station to head home. But first, Rabbit had to make the call. Hey Himi, Before our train gets here, I need to make a call. Himiko looked at him, as if she knew exactly what was happening. Yes, even she knows how ruthless Sir Ring can get. She also has scars to prove it. Yet she couldn't let her bunny feel scared, so she nodded while hugging her friend. Okay, Zuzu. She then kissed him on the cheek. Good luck. Her voice was filled with sincerity, and her eyes reflected how much she loved him. Izuku nodded as he let go of her hand, letting Himiko stay in her spot to wait for their train. Izuku walked slowly to the phone booth, counting down the remaining days he had left with every step. Once inside the small space, he inserted the right amount of change into the machine that brought the phone line to life. He pressed the first number, then the second, then the third. Every number he pressed, the little less time Rabbit had to mentally prepare himself for the wrath of his boss. Hell, his body could physically feel the withdrawals already. Call me, okay. Dial. Rabbit placed the phone against his ear. The first ring, the second ring, then the third ring. Shit. Was this a bad time? Rabbit would be lucky if Sir Rink was in the middle of a business meeting. But let's be real here. The universe is not that nice. But then again, it really wasn't like his boss to miss their calls, especially from Rabbit. Oh fuck. Has Sir Rink already found out? No, that's not possible, right? What if Nezu had called Sir Ring about the offer he gave Izuku? His phone number is the one listed on his file, so Nezu would have definitely ended up calling him if anything happened. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Then the phone line clicked. Status? His voice alone had Rabbit gulp his saliva down his suddenly dry throat. There's a hunter in the forest, not too far, but close to the burrow. Rabbit responded, trying to mask his voice to seem normal. The line went silent, making Rabbit feel Sir Ringa's threatening aura through the phone. I already know. Fuck. Your job was to only survey the perimeter, not tease the fucking hunters. Rabbit shuddered from the loud bang he heard through the phone. Sir Ring must have thrown something. You're incredibly lucky since you're the only one holding down the fort, or else I would have slaughtered you like the pathetic rabbit you are. Rabbit sighed and nodded, completely understanding his worth in this line of work. I'll chase away the hunters, but you're on your fucking own with what happens next. Click. The line went dead with a loud thud that hurt Rabbit's ear. Rabbit hung the phone back on the line. Shit. That was worse than he expected it to be. And this was always the worst part of doing this job. The waiting game. Meaning all Rabbit can do is just enjoy his slushie, head home, and wait until tomorrow. Kinda like running out of drugs and waiting for the withdrawal to hit. It's the fear that you're dreading to hit out of nowhere. It's honestly unfathomable how Rabbit ended up on this path. Every mission he has won makes him wonder if that would be his last. But like we discussed many times, Rabbit is the new reincarnation of a young ghost boy once known as Izuku Midoriya. His new life does not matter, and he doesn't care what happens to him. He was made to just follow orders. That's all. Welcome to UA Academy, Mr. and Mrs. Nice Mono. Nezu greeted the two adults who sat down across from him. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with me today. I am very honored to have your foster son in my academy. Nezu smiled at the two male and female adults that looked very exhausted. Given how their eye bags looked and how slim they appeared, their appearance reminded Nezu of All Might in his withered form. Thank you, sir. We just didn't know what else to do with that boy given our living situation. The woman started out as her husband began to scratch at his inner forearm. We're just so happy that you accepted him on such short notice. She lightly chuckled. We did enroll him just a couple days after enrollments were finalized, so thank you very much. She then nudged her husband, who immediately stopped scratching, only to then begin speaking with a slight stutter due to his panicking. Why, yes, thank you again for enrolling our kiddo, he shouted from being startled. I must say, that offer you gave him yesterday had him hootin' like an owl all night. He smiled wide that revealed some yellow teeth and slight tooth decay. Now that Nezu noticed, This man must have been a smoker given the slight cigarette smell that was lingering off his form. But I really don't think we should jump to conclusions with that boy. This made Nezu perk up. Do they not know that Midoriya is clearly a genius with all the qualifications of becoming a hero, or even owning his own agency? I mean, I know he scored higher than all the other kiddos, but we just can't afford to have him go here for more than 6 months, sir. The look on his face after speaking seemed to be a mix of, I did well, and, I messed up, didn't I? Which said a lot to Nezu from seeing the glare the man's wife was giving him that he could definitely see in his peripheral vision. Boy, was the man sweating when seeing her hair starting to form a scorpion tail. I think what my husband is trying to explain, she growled out, is that yes, Izuku is a very gifted kid with amazing intelligence, but we're not fond of the fact that someone could easily take control of him and do some kami knows what experimentation on him since his intelligence isn't a quirk. Her eyes then sharpened to scan Nezu up and down, as if she wasn't impressed by what she was seeing. And I've dealt with a lot of people who tried to take the kid away, so just because you own this school doesn't mean I fully trust you. She crossed her legs, and then glared at the stoat as her long dirty blonde hair had now formed the full length of her slithering scorpion tail. I understand your concern for your foster son's safety, but I can assure you that I seek no malicious intent since I only seek to guide him to use his intelligence for not only his, but the rest of these students' future as heroes and other majors. Nezu then stood up from his seat to stand in front of the wide open window that gave him the view of the entire campus. He watched the students down below making their way through the grounds, and he watched with glee at every student who was just living in their own world. One student was running to class, another was walking with friends. A mutant student was texting on their phone, and a quirk student was listening to music. I know how you feel for Midoriya's safety, and I know the horrors that would happen to Midoriya if anyone with bad intentions took him away. I am living proof of that fear. Nezu flashed the eye that held the scar from his time being an animal experimentation, showing both the husband and wife his own battle scar, much like Midoriya's. I can see that you truly understand how incredibly smart Midoriya is, and how much good it could bring, and I understand that you're scared of losing him. Nezu then walked back over to his desk to sit down and open up a drawer. Which is why I could help you with your living situation, if it means Izuku Midoriya could stay for all 3 years. Once the files were retrieved, Nezu placed the stapled packet on his desk in front of the foster parents. I will personally fund your new home if it means I can turn your foster son into the hero he deserves to be. You know as well as I do that Midoriya deserves this opportunity, that he deserves to become the hero this society needs. He then placed down a fountain pen. All you have to do is sign at the bottom line, and I promise. Nezu smiled. I'll turn Midoriya into the hero he deserves to be. The looks from both the husband and wife were interesting to watch. The husband looked so scared to touch the pen, let alone look at it, as if his whole form began trembling. He even started scratching at his forearm again. That is relatively concerning. The wife, on the other hand, looked dumbfounded, as if Nezu just told her the most outrageous conspiracy theory ever told. What happened next was completely out of foresight for the high-specs quirk user. The wife immediately slammed both her hands down against the desk as she stood up, her scorpion hair tail now rattling out a deadly tune similar to a rattlesnake that was threatening to bite. To top off this disturbing sight was her ember eyes glowing with anger as she bared her pearly white teeth. You have some nerve to dismiss all of my concerns. She clenched her fists into a tight ball. You don't get it, so I'll say it again. She then looked into the onyx eyes of Nezu's animal-like pupils. I don't want Izuku to be taken away by some villain, get killed, or get kidnapped if he does become a hero. He's already gone through so much that I'm sure as hell I'll beat the living out of that so-called hero that made my Izuku commit suicide. She had angry tears streaming down her face. Izuku is everything I have left. He's what makes me live another day. He gives me the one thing that makes me truly happy. And I'm not going to let anyone take that away. With that last emotional confession, she stood up, yanked her husband up on his feet, and began stomping over to the door. Izuku is only here for 6 months, until June, and that is final. Nezu was in total surprise to see how she reacted, even flinching when she slammed the door behind her. Oh dear, he's pretty sure they already talked to Midoriya about this, so there's no need to plead. Nezu sighed. But he couldn't blame his foster parents for their reaction. He understood the fear all too well, but multiply that feeling by thousands. You see, being the principal of UA is like being a parent to a whole orphanage of young kids. Nezu truly cares for each and every one of his students that have either graduated and became what they strive to be, to the ones that have recently enrolled into his school. Even he shares the fear of one of his students getting captured or caught up with villains. Look at Shouta Aizawa and Hisashi Yamada. Nezu wasn't the principal at the time when Aizawa and Yamada were attending UA. But he remembers reading over the UA archives and reading one file about a student who was killed during their work studies. Shirakumo Oboro, a name that Nezu refuses to be forgotten from existence. His hero name would have been all over the media and up on the hero rankings if he was still alive. What a horrible accident. Shirakumo was a student in Class 2A when he was killed from the debris from a collapsing building during a villain fight. What pained Nezu was not only the sad fact that Shirakumo wasn't able to use his quirk to save himself, because he used his quirk to save a bystander, was also the seeing that Aizawa was there when the accident happened. Then finding out by Aizawa himself when asking to expel and re-enroll any student who didn't meet his requirements that the boy, Oboro Shirakumo, was Aizawa's and Yamada's best friend who had already planned to have a hero agency together. Nezu understood the fear all too well, and he was determined to never let anything that traumatic happen to any of his students, as long as he stayed in office. But he was really hoping to have Midoriya attend all 3 years, so Nezu could personally train him to become a hero or anything the team desired to be. Sadly, that's not the case. But that doesn't mean Nezu is giving up. No, far from it actually. Nezu could still teach Midoriya. It's just going to be short term, and whatever school Midoriya attends to after he gets withdrawn. Nezu could always let that particular school know that he would like to keep tutoring Midoriya whenever he can. Hopefully as time goes on his foster family will come around to accept Midoriya's true intelligence. Nezu closed his eyes and nodded, now beginning to schedule a time in Midoriya's class schedule to tutor him. He also needed to ask Midoriya a huge question. Izuku sat back, whilst lifting up the welding mask over his head to take a breath. He wiped the sweat off his forehead with one of the extra bandanas he bought from the craft store at the mall. The lady insisted on giving the boy something for free when he bought so much from her store. Yes, Rabbit was prepared to work hard at UA and to work at a fast pace. But he was not prepared to start building huge support items on the second day. After jumping down from the ladder he had been sitting on, he pulled up the blueprints for the metal bodysuit he's currently repairing, really paying attention to what needs adjustments and how to make the metal move more smoothly without the metal grinding too hard or chipping. "How's it going, Midoriya? Any trouble?" Power Loader Sensei asked as he stared up at the huge bodysuit before him. "I'm okay, Sensei. I just need to add a few more adjustments, and then this will be all done," Izuku explained with a smile, then folding the giant blueprint back up and climbing back on the ladder with the blowtorch in hand. "You work fast, Midoriya. I'm really impressed," Power Loader said in awe. "After you're done, you can go tell the 3rd year his body armor is finished. He needs it before the next hour," he reminded Izuku. "You got it, thank you, Sensei." With that, Izuku flipped down his welding mask and started up the blowtorch again. Good thing he was almost done. All he needed to do was to weld the neck brace together and add the final touch. As he began welding the metal together, his new wound began to sting on his neck, and very much a coincidence and lifesaver left eye that was his blind bad eye. You might be wondering how he got these new wounds, and believe Rabbit when he says it could have easily been avoided if the #1 hero would have been more cautious. But given how that very same man caused Izuku to die, That's asking for too much. This is how it happened. I am here. The broad voice of the hero that came from the wide open door. To see how production is going in our most dependable department studio. In a matter of seconds, the entire class went wild over All Might's appearance. And throughout the chaos, Izuku was able to catch the glimpse of one of his classmates dropping their set of tools, causing two of the laser blades used for cutting metal to turn on and aim directly at the female student, who froze as if they were a deer in headlights. In a blink of an eye, Izuku was able to push the student out of the way, but it resulted in him getting both of the lasers to graze his neck and uncovered eye. Okay, now you're wondering why he had his eye patch off. Well, every couple hours and certain days he has to take his eye drop solution in order for him to not get severe dry eye. It was one of those days when he had to take his eye solution, especially given the project he was assigned to do. Thankfully, it was his left eye. But he now grew annoyed for how often his bad eye was getting injured. He can only afford to take so many injuries that won't make his personal doctor, that Sir Ring assigned him, to get annoyed from using his quirk to repair the damages over and over again after every mission or withdrawal. At that moment, everyone got startled and his group of friends began inspecting the injury. Izuku was not pleased to see that the laser had cut him so badly that so much blood was spilling out his wounds in a matter of seconds. Sakura's screams, the girl repeating thanks and apologies, and everyone's terrified expressions told Izuku that the injury was really bad. Much to his dismay, All Might offered to take Izuku to Recovery Girl. After going back and forth with the old lady to just patch up his wounds and not put him to sleep, nor send him to a real hospital, she reluctantly gave Izuku stitches when the boy was literally running away from her kisses. She also made the discovery of how strong Izuku's pain tolerance was. He never flinched once, and that sort of concerned the old lady, given how much this boy had gone through to get used to such pain. That was a fun trip that lasted for nearly 30 minutes. Now present Izuku was finally done with the armor, with his nails getting so close to claw at the stinging itching sensation that consumed his neck and eye. Kami, at this point, just let him die. But before he could send this off, and before he dies to the third year, Izuku then pulled out two of a syringe-like serum and placed it in the secret compartment that lays inside the armor. That had the engraved rabbit logo on it. "Power loader, sir, I'm all finished," Izuku said, earning tons of stares of awe from his classmates upon seeing how fast Izuku got his project done. Even Power Loader stared in astonishment at the incredible adjustments Izuku was able to make in the less time he was given from the accident earlier. "Amazing job, Midoriya. Here, take these to the third year and let him know his suit is all done." Power Loader handed Izuku all the files and blueprints that were associated with the support item. "Will do, sir." Izuku bowed and left the very busy department studio, finally getting fresh air from all the debris and smoke that was flying around the studio. Given how far the third-year classes were, and how much time Izuku had left to spare, he decided to make his way into one of the third-year restrooms and tend his wounds that was making him want to claw his stitches out. Once inside the restroom, he made sure no one was inside any of the stalls before locking himself inside one of them, and still clothed sitting down on the toilet seat. Rabbit then pulled out another one of his secret stash of drugs. But this one is known as Narco, and should definitely help with his pain, and to get him high at the same time. What? Did you think he only carried one stash of drugs? Be for real. Normally, if it were glass, he would have rolled up his single 10,000 and snorted the line. But not with this drug. These are the kind of drugs you take orally, so Rabbit poured out the tablets in his palm and popped them in his mouth to swallow dry. Now he was wishing he had water to drink, given how he could feel one of the pills still lodged in his throat. Kami, it's only the second day at UA and Rabbit is already downing narcos like normal medication. Well, at least he has enough drugs to not worry about withdrawals catching up to him. Thank you, Captain Sir Ring, for blessing Rabbit to say hi on this mission, and for supplying his fix. Rabbit can't be sober for more than 2 months, or he'd be gouging out his other eye to sell for another dose. In the midst of Rabbit waiting for the drug to kick in, A knock on the stall door had Rabbit jump, almost causing him to knock over his stash. Occupied, he shouted in a panic, trying desperately to get his head on back straight and not seem suspicious while also hoping to not poison his euphoric high. Fuck. If it's a teacher, then he's dead. Dead as in pure rabbit pie dead. Fuck, 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 fuck. Some people even know me as rock, or even ice, crystal methamphetamine. The voice was just soft enough that Rabbit was able to make out what this person was saying. Wait, was it that song? That song? Just take a hit, and call me. Rabbit sang back in the same haunting tune that is engraved into his head. Captain Sir Ring. Rabbit and the mystery person sang in sync together. This only means one thing. Whoever this person was is a junkie just like him. But not just any junkie. A junkie associated with Captain Sir Ring himself. Only true members know that tune by heart. It's how they could determine their status on the streets or anywhere in that matter. Now earning Rabbit's full trust, while also letting out a sigh of pure relief, he opened up the stall to see a student who was in their casual school uniform. But they were a cat mutant with patches of white, brown, and black spots that painted their fur. And finally, those heterochromic eyes, those same gold and aqua eyes that Rabbit will never forget. Calico? Rabbit gasped out in shock with a mix of surprise. The student before him let out a chuckle along with their familiar feline smile. Hey Rabbit, I thought that was you. It's good to see you again. A cat paw reached out to shake the freckled hand, but Rabbit was frozen in place to accept his handshake. Hey, oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you too. Now with his brain finally catching up thanks. But no thanks to the narcos, Rabbit skipped the formalities and went in straight for a hug. It really was so nice to see Calico again, especially on this mission. Hey, Calico chuckled while stumbling back from the force his dear friend made from tackling him with a hug. His laugh was filled with true happiness upon hugging his friend back. After seeing your big speech at orientation, I was dying to say hi, but I lost you through the halls from the sea of people you charmed, and even when I had time to go see you, I just got swamped with business work. Calico put on a sly smirk and started ruffling Rabbit's moss of hair, earning a laugh from the boy. Then I saw your bush of hair and just knew it was you, but I had to make sure. Both teens let go of their embrace to do their special handshake they made for each other. Oh my, it's been months. I didn't know you're here at UA, so this is such a great surprise. Rabbit smiled wide with his hands thrown out in excitement, feeling the wave of euphoria and serotonin finally hitting him. Yeah, it surprised me too. Believe me, I worked my ass off to get here. Calico smiled too, giving Rabbit another hug. It has been months since Rabbit and Calico saw each other given their own missions. But now that Calico is now with Rabbit and is attending UA, this mission has gotten a whole lot better. Hey, you better get going. But before you go, Calico leaned forward and whispered. Who do you have? Rabbit leaned back and whispered his response. I have Syringe, Narcos, Benzos, and Caroline, aka Hero. Rabbit started to fidget with his hands with Calico leaning against the sink. How much syringe? Asked Calico. Red Bull Standard. Rabbit responded with a grin. It was true, he only has 27 grams of glass on him. Enough to get him through weeks. This made Calico smile. Hit me. He grinned, watching Rabbit pull out his crushed stash and poured a line on his wrist. Calico, on the other hand, already had a straw that was cut so the end was slanted. One Rabbit laid out the line on his wrist. The cat mutant leaned forward, plugged up one side of his nose, and sniffed the entire line. Once he finished, he took a massive step with a giant grin on his face. Oh fuck, that's that stuff. Calico fell back against the sink once again as he began purring loudly. His fur was standing on end and his pupil slits were expanding so wide. Rabbit began to laugh, the high making him feel so happy. You know where to find me for another hit, okay? Rabbit put his stash of glass away in his eye patch as Calico nodded frantically, so doped up that he was in ecstasy. Yup, can't wait. I'll see you soon, okay? The cat mutant was now collecting himself with a huge smile on his face. But after years of doing the drug, he was able to keep himself together like always. Yep, I'll see you around. Rabbit waved at his friend, who waved back and slurred his own. See ya. Before Rabbit nodded and walked out of the restroom towards his destination. Calico and Rabbit had a very strange meeting, and it all started when Rabbit first started working for Sir Ring as a simple dealer. Calico wasn't a regular or anything, no. He clearly didn't know what he was doing since he was losing his mind over the withdrawals. Calico tried to steal from Rabbit, but of course, he had moves like the animal and easily outran his hunter. The next time they saw each other, it was when Rabbit got beaten up real bad by one of the customers who refused to pay their debt, earning a bloody blow to his bad eye over and over again. That's when Calico took Rabbit in when he was knocked unconscious and got mugged. Calico did have intentions to steal whatever Rabbit had left, but after seeing he had nothing and was literally dying from the beating, Calico took Rabbit back to his place and helped the boy heal. It was later revealed that Calico was a year and a half older than Rabbit, 17 to be exact, but his appearance made him look like an adult. During his time healing and staying low, Rabbit got to know Calico like a normal person. The cat mutant is in foster care and was living with a police detective at the time. Now you could ask, how was he living with a police detective when dealing with a drug addiction? Well, he tried to stay clean until the time he moved again. But of course, things didn't go as planned, so he ended up staying with the detective longer than anticipated, which left Calico to go feral over the withdrawals. That led to how he met Rabbit, and their friendship became unbreakable after that. Sure, the two were separated for some time, but they were able to keep in touch whenever they had the chance, and it was worth the wait to see Calico at UA. Finally, a friend he can fall back on if things get rough. Rabbit felt relieved about Calico's presence and will for sure hang out with him throughout the mission. With a smile on his face, Izuku reached the 3B Hero Course class and let the student and their sensei know his hero armor had been repaired. Izuku was thanked and was told to head back to class. When walking back, the spooky, scary skeleton man had come crawling around the corridor with a smile on his sunken face. "Oh, my boy, good morning once again." The man smiled and waved, earning a blank and semi-high look from the one emerald-eye kid in front of him. "I want to apologize again for causing your injury. I promise I won't let anything like that happen again." Toshinori pleaded with his hands clasped together, showing remorse on his face. "Good morning, Mr. Toshinori again. Please excuse me, I must head back to my class." Midoriya bowed with respect before walking around the man. "Seriously, he can't deal with home right now." "Of course, I could accompany you if you wish." The man smiled widely, trailing behind the student with his tall, slender figure hovering over. "Okay, this is getting fucking ridiculous for Izuku. Why, you may ask? Well, this is the third time Izuku had run into Toshinori today, and let me tell you, he's had it." "Toshinori?" Izuku turned his head slowly, looking up at the man with his one emerald eye. The euphoric high slowly turning into poison as anger was boiling his blood. The man looked at him with a curious look, with a hint of hope. "Are you stalking me?" The way Toshinori gasped with blood getting coughed up his throat and frantically tried to explain his actions, only to have Izuku groan in annoyance and confirm that yes, Toshinori has been stalking him. "Sir, please calm down. If you're afraid I'm going to say anything, don't be." He sighed. "I have nothing to gain from it, and it's not like anyone would believe me if I did try to out you." Before the man could speak, Izuku just walked away with a slight stumble in his steps, but he eventually made it back to his class and continued through his day like it was normal. Then lunchtime time came. "Midoriya, my boy, would you mind having lunch with me?" Izuku was in the midst of being carried to lunch by his support course friends, and to be honest, Izuku was ready to say yes just for the madness to stop. But when thinking about it, he'd rather deal with the madness than deal with Toshinori. "With all due respect, sir, I'm afraid I'm going to have to decline, but thank you for the offer." Izuku was ready to be carried away, but of course, Toshinori refused to give up. "Oh please, Midoriya, I prepared us some tea already, and was hoping we could have a chat. It's very important. Izuku was ready to decline once again, but one, he didn't want to look rude in front of his peers, and two, after dealing with Toshinori 3 whole times today already with the man getting him injured. Ugh, fine. Very well, excuse me everyone. Izuku bowed to his friends, and after getting tackled into a group hug, wishing him a good lunch, Izuku waved and walked with the tall, slender man to the now empty teacher's lounge that held 2 huge white couches with a coffee table between them. Thank you so much for joining me for lunch, Midoriya. I sincerely apologize for taking you away from your friends. They seem nice. Toshinori brightly smiled, already pouring some hot tea into the teacups. Rabbit just sighed, already annoyed at the man. Well, I had to accept, if it means you'll stop stalking me. The tone from his words made Toshinori choke on his saliva, and more blood nearly dropping the teapot in his hands. Rabbit pulled out a tissue from his pocket and handed it to Toshinori, letting the man wipe his chin from the blood that spewed out. After the man finished coughing and taking a sip of his own tea, he spoke. I apologize if it seemed that way, young Midoriya. I promise, my intentions were to never stalk or make you feel uncomfortable. It's just... Toshinori leaned forward to pour tea into the boy's cup. I worry about you, my boy, the man sighed, finishing pouring Midoriya's tea and opening up his own bento box, letting the steam from the rice rise into the air. You are right about me worrying about you saying something. How selfish of me, I know. The man looked down in shame, having shivers go down his spine from being under the eye of the young boy whose dreams he crushed. I see. Izuku opened up his bento box to see Himiko's little heart-shaped note that explained what he was served with. A delicious meal of tempura shrimp, broccoli, and mushrooms with a side of thin beef and rice were displayed before him. Steaming and smelling delicious. I would say you shouldn't worry about me, but seeing how you persist on stalking me throughout the day, he trailed, getting me injured and with the possibility of you continuing to do so. I won't bother since apparently you really want suspicion to be sent towards you. Oh, the mind games that Rabbit can play. He can literally dance circles around anyone when it comes to mind games, and actually running away. The face Toshinori made was priceless. He gulped. You do have a point there, my boy. He deflated in his seat. I will refrain from watching you, but please promise me that you'll keep my quirk a secret. That's all I beg of you, my boy. Toshinori pleaded with his hands clasped against each other once again, begging silently for Izuku to promise. Is that it? Toshinori looked up at the boy who had a confused, but yet slightly disappointed expression on his face. I mean, yeah, I'll keep your secret, but if that was all, then you shouldn't have to worry. Like I said on that roof, I wouldn't say anything. Izuku then chuckled when taking a bite of the tempura broccoli with his chopsticks. It's funny, really. I would have died with the truth. Another chuckle escaped his mouth, earning a shocked expression from Toshinori, the dark humor hitting the man like a pile of bricks. I'm really sorry, young Midoriya. I truly am, he said, taking his own chopsticks to eat a dumpling from his bento box, only going into a halt when he heard the boy across from his groan. And I keep telling you that it's okay. It's in the past. With an annoyed look, Izuku took a sip of his tea. I'm alive, isn't that enough? He sighed, only to then widen his eye to look at Toshinori with a blank expression. Unless you thought otherwise? Those words made Toshinori jerked in shock, coughing up more blood and almost knocking over the table. And no, I didn't. The man had a look of pure terror in his eyes. It was like the realization that Izuku could have died with the truth rocked to his very core. I swear, I never thought that you'd jump. The man was trembling from the thought. Their vertigo was crashing down on him with no mercy. So let me get this straight. Izuku placed down his chopsticks and folded his hand together. His one good emerald eye staring intently at the #1 hero of Japan with his eye patch mocking him of the past. I understand that I got myself onto that rooftop, but you, he pointed at All Might who flinched violently from the motion. Mr. #1. revealed to a kid he just met his biggest, greatest weakness, didn't take to seek medical attention after they were attacked by a villain who tried making them swallow all the slug to take over their body, and just said, "Knock until someone lets you out." As if anyone could have been inside, and then just leaves a child who was probably traumatized by the attack on the rooftop with no one but themselves. Did I get that right? Izuku stared at the pale, terrified expression on Toshinori's face. Heck, the man couldn't even touch his food anymore. Young Midoriya. No, that wasn't my intention, and you're right. I am ashamed that I left you like that. I broke protocol just because I panicked. The man gasped. A single tear slid down his cheek. I am so sorry, and I'll forever be sorry, he wept. I know I'll never gain your forgiveness, but please know that I am thankful that you're alive, and striving to inspire others to become better heroes than our past generations. He placed a trembling hand over his chest. To become better than me. Toshinori then lifted his head, his eyes glossy with tears that continued to stream down his cheeks. With the purest smile on his face, he said, "Thank you for staying alive." Rabbit didn't care that he was alive, and Izuku Midoriya was dead. I'm sorry, Toshinori. Izuku would have loved to hear that. Thank you, Toshinori. I promise, your secret is safe with me. Izuku's smile matched Toshinori's, if not more softer and kinder. Izuku then stood up, earning a star-filled gaze from the man that watched the young boy before him rise up like a hero, raising his teacup and saucer towards Toshinori with that kind smile that belonged to a boy full of life. For staying alive, he toasted. Toshinori couldn't help but smile, raising up his own teacup that was still steaming from the heat. For staying alive, my boy. The two males clinked their teacups and took a giant gulp. Both were humming from how delicious the tea was. Let's eat now. The two dug into their bento boxes, even sharing what they had with each other. Izuku felt smug, knowing that Toshinori was complimenting nonstop about the well-made tempura shrimp. In the end, the food was scarfed down. Not a single crumb was left, and Izuku hummed at how delicious Himiko's cooking was. Amazing as always. Lunch ended, and so did their conversation that resulted in them now coming to good terms. Even though Toshinori felt a little lighter, the weight of his guilt felt heavier and heavier. As much as he wishes to make it up to young Midoriya, he felt as if nothing could ever possibly make up for it. Well, maybe one thing. Wow, Izu, you're so popular with the teachers, Sakura said with a sparkling smile on her face that lit up her Sakura flower pattern on her cheeks. Izuku just chuckled with a small smile. It's not as good as it sounds, Sakura. Izuku chuckled, because honestly deep down, he'd wished he never got the attention. The dead part of him was scratching at the coffin from all these opportunities stomping on his grave. How so? Ryusei asked, taking the last bite of his last rice onigiri. A single rice grain sticking to his cheek. I keep receiving these great opportunities for a better future here at UA, but it's not going to matter once I leave. Now, Rabbit didn't think it'd be a big deal. I mean, he has to let it be known that he's not staying for the whole school year, so he doesn't keep any connections to anyone. He really can't, even if he wants to. Wait, what? It took a moment for Izuku to realize his group of friends stopped walking with him. All their eyes were wide with shock, making Izuku also stop in confusion. What? Izuku cocked an eyebrow at his group of friends, who still had shocked expressions. What do you mean you're leaving? What about our babies? Hatsune shouted in disbelief, grabbing a hold of Izuku's shoulders. Oh, what I mean is, I'm only here for 6 months. After that, I'm leaving UA. Izuku gave a small smile to his friends and a light chuckle, showing how passive he feels about the situation. But I'm excited to spend the rest of my time here with you guys. Even though Rabbit is a very good liar and manipulator, he still is very excited to spend his remaining time with his new friends. Even if he doesn't care for them, they're better off without him anyways. Oh, now I'm so bummed, Sakura cried out, causing her quirk to cry out small tears that turn into gold and diamond ingots once oxygen makes contact with them. 6 months? Then that means. Yuyusei started naming the months on his fingers. You're leaving in June? The group gasps at Izuku's nod of approval. But we can always stay in touch and hang out, right? Haruki asked with small timids of sadness in his eyes. Right, Izu? He asked again with his ring-tail deflating from the concerning silence. Which got worse after Izuku shrugged. I mean, we could try. He pulled Mei's arms off of his shoulders to hold both her hands in a comforting gesture. I don't own a cell phone, and knowing my foster parents, I might have to move back to the countryside. Izuku could feel the sad aroma from his small group of 4 friends, and he knows they'll continue on without him with no issues. Just like Izuku Midoriya, he'll be forgotten, but that's okay. Hey now, don't worry. He began swinging Mei's arms. I'm still here until then, and when I leave, I know you'll continue to strive for the top. Izuku let go of Mei's hands to raise his fist into the air, earning bright eyes from his support course friends. Remember what I said at orientation. I want to inspire everyone to become better than our last generation. And I know you guys will become the best support team any hero will be blessed to have. Izuku flashed his best inspirational smile that was pure joy. Even if this doesn't work, it won't matter since he's still leaving one day. You're right, Izu, Ryusei smiled, causing his quirk to make stars appear from his palms that swarmed around Izuku's head like a crown. Even when you're gone, we'll strive to succeed, and it'll all be thanks to you, he said proudly, emitting more stars to float above the group. Yeah, Sakura shouted with her gold and diamond tears clinking against the ground. She wrapped her arms around Izuku and looked up at the boy with her flower-shaped eyes. And one day we'll meet again, and we'll make you the head of our agency. She hugged him tightly and inhaled his scent, earning a blush from the eye patch boy himself. Oh, thank you, Sakura. Izuku hugged her back, then got tackled into the ground by multiple arms. He heard it all, how they promised to succeed for him, how they promised to make his remaining time here worthwhile, promised to be friends forever, and to work hard so they could all run an agency together. Rabbit smiled, knowing how he, too, can lead his hunters off the trail. It was late at night when Rabbit entered the run-down abandoned warehouse where he knew his fellow dealers were hiding out. Rabbit walked down the destroyed and debris-filled hall into the main entrance where everyone was dancing from the music and getting high off their asses. Hey, Rabbit. The dragon mutant greeted, walking up to the kid for a handshake and offering his glass pipe for Rabbit to smoke from, which he did. After the teen inhaled the steaming glass that warmed up his lungs in their wonderful embrace, he exhaled the giant cloud that sparkled under the flashing lights. Yeah, here for Stripe and Scorpio? The mutant asked, inhaling another puff from the glass pipe. Yeah, are they here? The man pointed through the crowd to show Rabbit that the two were cross-faded on the dirty couch in the center. Rabbit thanked his friend and maneuvered through the crowd of drunk addicts to get to the center. Once there, Stripe noticed him instantly and got up from the couch. Hey kiddo. He stuttered with a stumble in his step from drinking so much. The alcohol reeked from his breath. You got my money? Rabbit asked. He only came here for one thing and one thing only, and he has to get back home. He's got school tomorrow. Yeah. The man patted his pockets, pulling out 2 stacks of cash, but before Rabbit could ask for the rest. Stripe then looked down at the woman who was passed out on the couch with her head in someone else's lap. Scorpio, hey Scorpio, he called out. Hey, Rabbit is here. This made the woman sit up straight like a bowstring. While rubbing her eyes, she pulled out 2 more giant stacks of cash that was stashed in her bra, throwing it down on the coffee table before falling back into the person's lap. I'm sorry about her, but here's the rest. Stripe stood patiently waiting for Rabbit to flip through all the 10,000 notes like a deck of cards. It's all here. Here you go. Rabbit pulled off his backpack to dump out multiple, giant bags of syringe, glass, Caroline, benzos, narcos, and weed. The way everyone swarmed over to the table to start snorting, injecting, and smoking the drugs like wild animals over food was insanely normal. Glad to see you again, Stripe. I'm sorry I had Captain send you guys to UA so soon. Stripe just chuckled after exhaling the cloud of smoke from inhaling a shard of syringe from his own glass pipe. It's no problem, kid. You know we'd do anything for you. He patted Rabbit's head. You're our favorite dealer after all. He smiled, taking another long inhale from his glass pipe. Go talk to Scorpio, she misses you. Stripe led Rabbit over to the couch like a dad leading their kid to go get ice cream. Scorpio, he called, having the woman who was now sitting up straight with an elastic band wrapped around her arm look up to face the kid with a red-washed gaze. Hey, sweetie, she smiled. How was school? She began to chuckle as the needle pierced her bruised veins. It's going well. He sighed. I'm sorry I had caption drilled down onto you guys, but thank you for having my back. He smiled, watching how out of it Scorpio was. But that didn't stop her from having a sincere conversation with the kid. Of course, honey, she closed her eyes. You can always count on us to bail you out. She leaned forward to pull Rabbit into a hug. I meant it when I said that you're all I have left, and that I'll never let anyone take you away. She leaned back to brush a long curl of green hair behind Rabbit's ear to hold the boy's face in her palms. You're so wonderful and kind, my dear. Her smile never once faltered, showing Rabbit she meant her words. Rabbit smiled back at her, knowing she's the only mother figure in his life now. Go home now, sweetie. You have a long day ahead of you. Rabbit nodded while standing up, pulling his backpack over his shoulders once again. Tell Himiko I said hi, she smiled. I will, Rabbit smiled back. I'll see you soon. He waved, earning a wave from the rest of the people in the room. I'll walk you out, kid. Stripe said, lending out his hand to present the hallway ahead of him. Rabbit and Stripe began walking down the hall, the music becoming muffled once they made it outside. You got a ride coming? He asked. I have an Uber on the way, don't worry. Rabbit showed his phone screen that said, Your Uber will arrive in 8 minutes. Nice, kid. Stripe gave an awkward thumbs up. Then the atmosphere quickly got awkward. I'll see you soon, Stripe. Rabbit was ready to walk down into the park for the Uber to pick him up, but he got stopped by Stripe. Stripe. Rabbit looked down at the man's grip on his arm, then up at his hazelnut eyes. Rabbit, you need to run, the man said, tightening his grip in a concerning manner. You have a whole life ahead of you. You were given another chance, yet you're here dealing with us. The way this man looked sent a glare in his direction from the emerald eye that haunts him. Let go of me, Stripe, you're drunk. Rabbit tried to budge the hand that gripped his arm, but the grip only got tighter with his other arm, getting grabbed to face the zebra-striped man. Rabbit, please, you have to leave. I can't watch another kid die with us. The man was now crying, keeping his death grip on Rabbit's arms. I can't. Rabbit took his chance to push the man away, causing him to stumble into the ground. Okay, Stripe, Izuku groaned. Let's say I did quit. Stripe looked up at the kid with a daze in his eyes. Where would I go without confessing who I've been staying with? How can I just re-enter society with my real name without the cops drilling down on me? His eye then narrowed. Who would be the one to supply your addiction with me gone? He then stepped forward, his piercing gaze sending the deadly blow. And who would be the one to break Scorpio all over again? This caused Stripe to cry and writhe on the ground. Don't fucking use that against me, he shouted. I didn't mean it, I swear, I didn't mean to. He sobbed incoherently, his hands shaking against his face. As heartless as Rabbit became, he left Stripe to wallow in his pain, so he could meet with his Uber down by the park. You're heartless, Rabbit. You're a fucking heartless junkie that will use anything and everything to destroy what you have for that needle in your veins or the powder up your nose. Why did I say that? He whispered to himself, crouching down to plant his head in his folded arms. It happens so much. Children end up dead when working with Sir Ring or with any drug cartels. They use children because they're seen as innocent. But in reality, no one will hesitate to murder a child if they don't get their supply or pay their debts. Rabbit has tasted death over and over like a special ice cream treat. He's familiar with the flavor that's served to him in the back alleys of the city, and will always enjoy the meal. Because sometimes he wishes he could finish the meal. Uber for Midoriya, Rabbit shot up, realizing his Uber had arrived. That's me, he says while frantically getting himself together. Hop in, kiddo. Rabbit got in the car, buckled in, and leaned his head against the car window. He gazed upon the city lights that made the stars disappear. You know, kid, the ride will take a while, so why don't you take a nap? The man smiled through the rearview mirror. I'll wake you up when we're at your destination. The car was pulled to a stop from a red light. Rabbit smiled. Thank you, sir. The man nodded, patiently waiting for the light to turn green as cars drove across. Rabbit used his backpack as a pillow to lean on against the door, then got situated in a more comfortable position. The radio was turned on to play some calming lo-fi music that had Rabbit doze right off to sleep. You're so wonderful and kind, my dear. Izuku heard his mother. His mother's wonderful voice that he'd sometimes hear when high off syringe. Oh, what he'd give to just see her one last time. Hold her, cry in her embrace, begging to go home with her. Izuku would give everything just to see her again. That's why Scorpio adores Rabbit, because he reminded her of her dead kid. Shouta Aizawa Ake, the underground pro hero. Eraserhead has been a teacher ever since one of his long-time best friends signed him up for UA, without his knowledge, nor consent, but ever since she did, Shouta got to learn more and more about what it took to be a hero alongside his students, while also showing his students how brutal this line of work was from his and others' experience. He refused to let any kid in his care fall into the wrong side of heroism, and he refused to let any kids fail die on him. If it weren't for Nimuri for getting him his position, Shouta would have definitely drowned in that dark sea of the underground. Thank you, Nimuri, for being his lighthouse and guiding him back to land. Now knowing Shouta's backstory, imagine his reaction walking into the teacher's lounge during lunch for his third cup of coffee to see his fellow staff members crying. And when I say crying, I mean crying. Of all his years teaching, dealing with his co-workers' shenanigans, and receiving migraines from the rat's mind games at UA, this has definitely topped any other situation he's been in. That says a lot since he was the one who had to deal with Hisashi, who was screaming his head off quirk activated when he saw a spider on his desk. I think what makes this top everything is that Shouta didn't even know what to say, let alone what the hell happened. Usually he would know how to assist the situation, but with no context whatsoever, he just casually walked past his crying staff members to reach the coffee pot for his refill of coffee. Or, maybe he just didn't want to deal with them without having a high dosage of caffeine in his system. Shauta. A loud whine from behind almost made the underground hero drop his precious cup of coffee. After that mini heart attack and tone of their voice, Shouta knew immediately who it was. So with a needed slurp from his very steamy coffee, he turned his attention towards the figure at the entrance. What happened, Nimuri? He grumbled out, turning to fully look at her with his usual tired expression. The rated R hero was draped very dramatically against the huge doorway with tissues patting the corner of her eyes in desperate attempts to not ruin her eyeliner. Shouta, you missed the most heartfelt and motivational speech at orientation this morning from the cutest student I've ever seen. Nimuri cried out, while also holding her face in her hands in a dramatic gesture that had Shouta completely blanked out. I'm telling you, Shouta, you missed out on the most emotional, yet euphoric speech that no hero could ever think of topping. Not even our number one could top it. Shouta could literally see sparkles radiating from her figure, only for them to fade away from her dropped facial expression to turn over to see the skeletal man himself, who looked very taken aback from her outpour. No offense, Toshinori. She smiled sweetly with a hint of embarrassment. And none taken, Nimuri. The man stuttered with a small wave of reassurance, coughing into a tissue that was again stained with blood. Shouta. Another whine, well more like scream, cried out, but this time it came from across the room. Okay, maybe a third cup of coffee wasn't enough for Shouta to deal with this. You missed the most amazing speech from the cutest little listener I've ever seen. Now that Hisashi finally showed up, Shouta took a long slurp from his cup of coffee before even asking what they were talking about. You can say he was mentally preparing himself. You should have seen him. He scored the highest recorded test score on the written exam. He set a new record for winning 600 points. Stars were literally sparkling in his eyes, making Shouta nod with slightly widened eyes at his best friend's enthusiasm. Sure, he was nervous and his speech was heart-wrenching, but that didn't stop him from standing up tall and strong for our school. It was just, Shouta, you really should have been there. Hizashi now had a desperate hold on Shouta's shoulders, who didn't budge since Hizashi has done this plenty of times to get used to it. Shouta, look, I took a video of it for you. Ononkiros smiled with tears that glossed her golden eyes, as well as she shoved a tablet screen in Shouta's face for the man to see. Shouta first shoved Hizashi off his shoulders, placed down his cup of coffee on the desk, and finally held up the tablet to watch what had his entire staff crying. Now the video started with a student wearing department studio work attire, walking down the pathway of the auditorium and up the steps to the main stage. Shouta immediately noticed the kid's shoes that had an All Might patterned bandana tied around them, with smeared graffiti of slurs and profanities, and wait. Are those spider lilies drawn on them? Where is this child? So Shouta can buy them a new pair of shoes. Also, how is this not going against the dress code? As you can tell from my shoes, I'm quirkless. Shouta watched the kid flash his shoes that were designed nicely with all those All Might charms. But what really unsettled Shouta the most out of all written slurs, insults, and spider lilies that were drawn on was the cube-shaped beads that spelled out the word Deku in English woven in the front laces. The word means useless. The fact that it was intentionally woven into the shoelaces on both sneakers means that this kid did it himself. A few nights ago, I was taking an Uber to a restaurant my roommate was meeting me at. The man who was driving me noticed my shoes and apologized for how society has treated me, and so many other quirkless people. This made Shouta's heart pang in his chest. He knows the statistics of quirkless people getting kidnapped, killed, and the most common being suicide. Those poor children, that's the worst part. Most of them were children. He told me a story about how he had a quirkless friend back in grade school, only for that teen to be killed by the gang known as Strikeout when they were in their first year. Shouta nearly choked on his saliva upon hearing such a statement, and the name of that calmy awful gang. Finally, he stopped over analyzing the kid's sneakers and listened to the whole story about a 15-year-old quirkless kid who was killed by the Strikeout gang, and how the number 57 pro hero, Equal, was also killed by Strikeout. Oh, how Shouta remembered listening to Hizashi's radio show when he explained the news about Equal. At the time, Shouta had recently graduated and was settled in the underground when hearing the news about the Strikeout massacre that sent the quirkless community into a panic for their safety. Even after all these years with Strikeout no longer in operation, Shouta still witnesses their suicides. He's collected so many shoes. 10 months ago, I was told by a pro hero that I couldn't become a hero since I was quirkless, and that I would be better off if I became a doctor, a lawyer, or a police officer. Shouta was in the middle of taking another sip of his coffee before he actually spat it back out. What? A goddamn pro fucking hero told this kid that. That's it, Shouta needs to know their name. And his boot won't be the only thing that's going to kick in their fucking teeth. After that pro hero told me I couldn't become a hero, I committed suicide off the building they left me on, only for me to fail and survive. Shouta watched this kid tear off their eye patch that covered their left eye to see a fresh big scar over their eye. Shouta physically cringed when he saw a scarred X over his sclere and iris. Shit, what happened to this kid? I woke up 3 days later in the hospital with a basilar skull fracture, popped eye socket, dislocated shoulders, a sprained neck, broken ribs, broken legs, and a shattered kneecap. But I survived. Well, that answered Shouta's question, but holy shit. How is this kid alive? I may not be a hero, and I may never become one, but I am determined to help and inspire you, the next generation of heroes, to see that our hero society is still broken, that it's not black and white, There's so many gray areas that we tend to remiss or choose not to acknowledge. Which is why I, as a quirkless kid who died for 2 minutes and 33 seconds, am here now on this stage to show you how cruel our society is. To now inspire you to become better than our last generation. To become even better heroes for the future generation. I want all of you, in every department, first to third year, hero course, general education, support course, and management, to know that every one of us has the heart of a hero. So let's make this year better than ever before. Let's fix this broken society with everything we got. So let me hear you say plus ultra. Shouda's mouth hung open as he watched the entire auditorium stand up and scream the loudest plus ultra he's ever heard. So that's what he heard when he was outside with his new class. With his eyes still glued to the screen, the camera turned to his staff members who were clapping with tears streaming down their eyes. Shouda couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of Hisashi literally cheering and crying with Nimuri holding him up. The camera then panned to the person recording, showing Anan opening her helmet to show her wiping her eyes with a kind smile. Then the video ended, leaving Shouda with goosebumps all over his body that had him returning back to reality. After collecting himself and returning the tablet to Anan, he spoke. "Who is that kid?" he asked with a look of astonishment in his eyes. The entire staff turned to point over to Higari, who was taking a bite of his onigiri rice. "That, my friend," he swallowed, "is Izuku Midoriya, my star student." He smiled while wiping off the grains of rice stuck to his cheek. You should have seen him during homeroom. He turned a pair of brass knuckles to emit spikes when they go in for a punch. He also upgraded his work goggles in less than 20 minutes. Higari pulled out the goggles from his pocket and tossed them to Shouda. Immediately Shouda could see all the upgrades done to what used to be a normal pair of goggles. Wow, thermal vision, night vision, enhanced vision, and is that a flashlight? Whoa, how cute! Nimuri gushed as she turned the dial that turned the flashlight on. "I'm very impressed," Shouda said truthfully, earning everyone's own praise about the child. "What's even more impressive is that our little listener's speech is trending all over the media," he screeched. "I'm already getting calls to have this kid on my radio show." Hisashi shoved his phone to show Shouda the history of all his business calls and emails of trying to get this kid on his talk show. "Wait, there's videos of his speech?" Shouda asked with a raised eyebrow. "Yup. So many students already posted their versions. It's #1 on trending." Hisashi then pulled up all his separate social media For You pages to show nothing but all these videos from different angles and positions of Midoriya up on stage, giving out his speech. And the likes on these videos were insane. 119K, 778K, and 5M likes on one video that had the entire speech. "Wait, Anan? Is this your video? The one with 5 million likes?" Shouda asked, taking Hisashi's phone to show her the video. "That is my video, but not my account." She smiled, letting Shouda read the account name this time. "Rated R Midnight?" Shouda turned his head with a dull expression to see a very proud-looking Nimuri. "Guilty," she sanged out while patting some foundation on her face. "Also check out these comments." Hisashi snatched the phone back from Shouda and started reading out the comments. "I want to give this boy a hug. This boy deserves nothing but all the love and care in the world. As a quirkless person myself, he is now our pillar of hope. He's definitely going to become the next #1. Did you hear that, Toshi?" Hisashi turned to search for the blonde man, only to see he was nowhere to be found. "Nori? Wait, where'd he go?" he asked, turning around in circles. "He left not that long ago, dear," Nimuri said as she marked a black dot on her beauty mark. "Oh, anyway," he smiled, "our little listener is turning into a star," Hisashi shouted with excitement. "Just imagine him becoming a hero. Midoriya would definitely change this world. I mean, he already has." Hisashi pulled up the video again that now has 5.8 million likes. "You're right, Hisashi. He would make a great hero." Shouda can see this kid had the drive and determination to be a hero, but given his speech, It seemed he already accepted his place in society. Now that made Shouta furious. The person who said Midoriya couldn't be a hero shouldn't even be a hero. Oh, Shouta is already planning different scenarios for this so-called hero. One way or another Shouta will find them, and their body will never be found. Excuse me, there's something I need to do. Aizawa gulped down the remaining reminiscence of his coffee, then walked over to the door. Now, Shouta. Hisashi walked over to wrap his arm over his longtime best friend. I know what you're going to do, and trust me, we already tried. Hisashi sighed. But then again, you do have underground connections, so. Hisashi leaned forward with a crazed look in his lime green eyes that screamed murderous intent. Let us know when you find the bastard. Shouta couldn't help but grin and matched the same murderous look on his dear friend's face. Will do. Shouta smirked out and began walking out of the teacher's lounge to head towards Nezu's office to talk to him about having the week off next week, so he can start up the manhunt to find that bastard of a hero. No, but seriously, Aizawa had to see Nezu, so he can update the rat creature that none of his students got expelled. This year Aizawa only had 19 students, which is a new record given the most students he had after expelling the majority were 6. The rest just got re-enrolled and strived to be better. But one student almost got expelled due to his very inappropriate behavior towards the girls in his class that Aizawa immediately put a stop to. Excuse me, sir, I'm heading to lunch. Shouta was about to turn the final corner to Nezu's office, but then stopped when he heard that familiar voice. Midoriya, my boy, please pardon my intrusion, but The kid was with Nezu. Oh no, this can't be good. What did that rat offer him? And please don't tell Shouta that All Might was a part of their meeting. Ugh, it's official. 3 cups of coffee just isn't enough to deal with any of this. He's going to have to up his caffeine dosage now. Please. Shouta began to quietly walk away, using his stealth training to make his footsteps sound inaudible. But before he could walk away entirely, Shouta heard a thud. Wait, did someone fall? Shouta peered back around the corner to see what happened, only to see the #1 hero of Japan bowing to the child before him. I wish to apologize for what I said to you that day on the roof. I wish to apologize for just leaving you there without taking you to get medical attention. I wish to apologize for being the reason you tried committing suicide. And I truly apologize for failing to be the hero you needed. Izuku Midoriya, I, Toshinori Yagi, am so very sorry and beg for your forgiveness. Toshinori Yagi. Toshinori Yagi was the bastard that hurt this child. Toshinori, All Might told this child he couldn't be a hero. He is a dead man. Shouta was going to kill him. Sir, please stand up. That response caught Toshinori off guard, but to Shouta, he had to hide away from giving the kid his affirmations for knowing his worth. Shouta knew it was wrong to listen in to their very private conversation, but this was something Shouta refused to walk away from literally. It appears that Midoriya had no interest in forgiving All Might, let alone talk to him, and Shouta could not blame him one bit. But please understand when I tell you that it's okay. Okay, now that statement took Shouta off guard. That day, I asked you a question that would have changed my life forever, and you answered it with full honesty. So what happened after that encounter is not on you. I made a choice that changed my life. Yes, I shouldn't have done what I did, but I was barely clinging on to life at that point. But I survived All Might. I moved on. What the kid said next hurt Shouta's chest. I'm okay. The way that kid said it sounded so true, so real that it had All Might Toshinori crying on the kid's shoulder. Now Shouta wasn't just mad anymore. He was hurt knowing that this kid had no other choice but to accept what happened and just move on. Sure, maybe the kid did just want to move on, but for Kami's sake. A child should not have to go through that. Let alone accept that their only purpose in society is to be treated like they aren't human or worthy of being alive. Shouta has finally had enough. He walked away knowing the Kami awful truth about their #1 hero. This is a set of cards that Shouta was keeping close to his chest. What can I say? He has a winning hand.